Chapter 1837. First Disciple. Who's that arrogant? The 10th prince glanced around, but didn't see anyone. There was a swirl of wind, and someone appeared in front of the 10th prince. When Yi Chun and Yi Shui saw him, they were stupefied. "Uncle Lin Feng," shouted Yi Chun, smiling widely. He could remember when he was still a child and Lin Feng came to visit. He didn't remember everything, but he remembered Lin Feng had changed his life. Uncle Lin Feng hadn't changed at all. "Lin Feng!" exclaimed Yi Shui. Surprisingly, he showed up at the perfect moment, just like last time. When the master saw Lin Feng, he was stupefied. They had hope again. "Who are you?" asked the 10th prince, eyes narrowed. It was a cultivator of the top of the Zunqi layer, just like him. "You said that if I showed up you'd kill me," said Lin Feng calmly. The 10th prince looked at Lin Feng strangely. The 10th prince stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng used to be very famous in the region, and now he was here? He's only a cultivator of the Zunqi layer like me? What could he do against me? Thought the 10th prince. He looked at Lin Feng icily and shouted, "Even if you're really Lin Feng, I'll kill you." The 10th prince started running towards Lin Feng, releasing power to surround Lin Feng. Some cosmic energies appeared indistinctly. He had reached the very top of the Zunqi layer. "Die!" shouted the 10th prince, and punched Lin Feng with all his strength. He had a ferocious smile on his face. However, his smile disappeared when his fist crashed against Lin Feng. It was as if he had punched a stone. Lin Feng remained completely motionless. The 10th prince used both fists and started madly punching Lin Feng over and over again. He even punched Lin Feng's face crazily, but nothing happened. Instead, death energy emerged from Lin Feng's eyes, and the 10th prince gave out a horrible shriek. He was hurled away, shaking violently. Lin Feng didn't even look at the 10th prince. He looked at the remaining members of Tianlong Divine Castle, and said indifferently, "You have 10 seconds to leave." Someone rose up into the air and shouted, "Let's go, we can't offend Lin Feng." People rose up in the air one after the other. They didn't care about the villagers anymore. Lin Feng had killed many people from Tianlong Divine Castle back then. The 10th prince's attacks were also ineffective against Lin Feng. If they stayed there, they would just die. Lin Feng watched them go. He could have easily killed them, but he didn't. He hoped that the villagers would be able to continue having a peaceful life. If he killed people here, more people might come back to avenge their friends. If he let them leave safely, they would have no reason to come back. The 10th prince looked at Lin Feng and asked shakily, "What's your cultivation level?" "Die," responded Lin Feng, releasing death energy to pierce through his eyes. The 10th prince limply fell down from the sky and crashed to the ground before the eyes of the villagers. The 10th prince was so strong, and Lin Feng had killed him by simple looking at him? And the 10th prince had dared say he could easily kill Lin Feng? To Lin Feng, the 10th prince was just a buffoon. He didn't care about him at all. And he didn't need to tell him about his cultivation level. They weren't friends. "Uncle Lin Feng," said Yi Chun. Lin Feng turned around and smiled at that young man. "You were just a boy and now you're almost a grown-up." When Yi Chun heard Lin Feng, he smiled widely and scratched his head. "Uncle Lin Feng, I've heard that you left the small world, and that you went to the great world. Is that true?" "Indeed," Lin Feng nodded. "So are you going to leave again?" asked Yi Chun. He still sounded like a child in front of Lin Feng, but not in front of his teacher. "Of course," Lin Feng smiled. Yi Chun wanted to say something, but the words didn't come out. Finally he managed to say, "Uncle Lin Feng, I want to come with you to the great world." "Xiao Chun, the great world is even more dangerous than the small world. There are too many strong cultivators there. There are millions, if not billions of people who are stronger than me in the great world. It's very dangerous. And also if you leave, what will happen to your family in the village?" said Lin Feng, put his hand on Xiao Chun's shoulders and smiled. "I'm not afraid," declared Yi Chun. He looked at the crowd and smiled. "Teacher, Grandpa Wang, Grandma Gao, uncles and aunties, you support me. You want me to go to the great world, right? Xiao Chun, you can go. You're the strongest cultivator of the village. We obviously don't hope that you'll stay in the village forever. You can come back sometimes. That's enough. Don't be like me, who stayed here to teach cultivation to children," said the master. "You can go, kiddo. The old people of the village all spoke up. Go and explore the great world. When you have time, come back and tell us about it. All right, agreed Xiao Chun, nodding happily. Then he promised, when I become strong, I will come back and help you have long and happy lives. Lin Feng watched him calmly inside. In the cultivation world, people like Xiao Chun were rare. He was a cultivator of the top of the Zunqi layer, and he had retained the heart of a child. That was probably why he had become so strong. I will take care of Xiao Chun. Yi Shuai promised the crowd. At that moment, the three of them were already in front of the villagers. Auntie, I should take care of you, laughed Yi Chen. All right, it's all good, said the master, before turning to Lin Feng and saying, Lin Feng, Xiao Chun knows everything about you, and has told us everything about you. Nobody is as strong as you in Ba Huang. Please take care of them in the great world. Then, the master knelt down before the astonished Lin Feng, and all the villagers knelt down before Lin Feng a heartbeat later. Master, what are you doing? I am not a god, declared Lin Feng, pulling on the master's arm to make him stand up. The master replied, Lin Feng, you saved our village twice. Kneeling down before you is the least we can do, and we also do it for our children. I will do my best to take care of them, promised Lin Feng. At the same time, a powerful strength made everyone stand up. Lin Feng hadn't had such a feeling for a very long time. He felt even more motivated. Xiao Chun even had tears in his eyes. Lin Feng asked, Xiao Chun, are you willing to have me as a teacher though? When Xiao Chun heard Lin Feng, he was astonished and felt like he was dreaming. The master was extremely happy too, and shouted at Yi Chen, Xiao Chun, pay respects to your teacher. As if Xiao Chun had realized something, he smiled, knelt down and said to Lin Feng, Uncle Lin Feng, no. I, your new disciple, am honored to have you as a teacher. Stand up, little boy. Lin Feng smiled and pulled on Yi Chen's arm, then tapped his shoulders. If Yi Chen hadn't retained the heart of a child, Lin Feng wouldn't have had this idea. From now on, you're my first disciple, smiled Lin Feng. Xiao Chen smiled in a silly way. He couldn't believe this was happening. All right, you can stay here in the village for a few days. When I come back, we'll leave, Lin Feng said to him. He wanted Yi Chen to spend more time with his friends and family before leaving. All right, replied Yi Chen, nodding very seriously. Lin Feng told him, don't practice cultivation too much. Stay with your friends and family, and enjoy your time with them. Lin Feng turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared over the horizon. Yi Chen clenched his fists as he watched his teacher go. He felt extremely excited as he thought, Uncle Lin Feng, you will always be like an uncle to me. I will never disappoint you. Chapter 1838. Worried about the Bahuang province, which had been quiet for a long time after the Wen clan, and the Palace of Medicinal Kings had taken control over the region, suddenly stirred up. Those two groups, the Wen clan and the Palace of Medicinal Kings, had been wiped off the map of the region, and all their strong cultivators had been killed. It was said that it was because they had joined hands to destroy the celestial palace of the immortals. Junemo she had come back and avenged them. The strong cultivators of the Wen clan, and the Palace of Medicinal Kings, had been killed outside of Jiang'a. The Wen clan and the Palace of Medicinal Kings had been destroyed by two young people who weren't even famous in the small world. At the same time, the news spread that the reason why the Wen clan had been destroyed outside of Jiang'a was that someone had ordered them, as well as the patriarch of the Xiaoyao sect, to go there. Many people were wondering who that could be, but at the same time, they already knew it was Jiang'a's young master Lin Feng. Junemo Shi and Lin Feng were good friends, and now they had come back together. Nobody could compete with them. Very quickly, more news spread in the northern part of Bahuang. Some people saw two of Tiantai's former direct disciples at the former site of Tiantai. Ho Qing Lin, who controlled reincarnation energy, and Tian Qi the Sadhu. They had become extremely strong. Some people pretended that they had seen how strong Ho Qing Lin had become. That one glance at him, and he gave you the impression that you could fall in the abysses of reincarnation. The crowd understood that Tiantai's disciples had gone to the great world, and now they had come back. However, Lin Feng had suddenly left Bahuang. He was in his boat and flying at full speed. He had never traveled that fast in the small world, so he had the impression that it had become a lot smaller. The small world was the same though, it hadn't become smaller. Lin Feng was just too fast now, and his cultivation level was powerful. Things appeared and disappeared from his field of vision in the blink of an eye. Tianqi hadn't changed. Back then, their two teachers hadn't followed them when they had decided to go to the great world. They had decided to stay in the small world and practice there. Lin Feng didn't know where they were, but Tianqi Empire hadn't changed, and they still ruled over Ganyu. Lin Feng slowed down when he arrived there, landing on the ground and walking in the snow, leaving footprints behind him. Some of Tianqi's disciples glanced at him. Lin Feng was wearing white clothes. He looked calm, serene, and friendly, but at the same time he looked extraordinary even though one couldn't see how strong he was. "I don't know where he's from, but he looks really strong," said some people after passing next to Lin Feng. They didn't stop, however. Lin Feng continued walking. Sometimes he saw people practicing cultivation in the mountains. Other times he saw people sparring. He was just passing through. Lin Feng soon arrived at the top of the mountain. He saw a beautiful woman there. Snowflakes kept falling all around her. She was smiling and looked graceful, as if she had been dancing. A beautiful woman dancing alone in snowy mountains. At that moment, a young man was slowly walking towards her. He looked handsome and quite strong. He sat down cross-legged in the snow and watched her dancing. The beautiful woman stopped and looked at the young man. The young man stood up, smiled and said, "Shi Yin, you're really beautiful." "Thank you." Hua Shiyin smiled and nodded at him. "I'm going back." The young man looked at her and called out, "Shi Yin." Hua Shiyin looked back at him and smiled. "What's wrong?" "Shi Yin, why don't you like me? Why am I not good enough for you?" asked that young man, his face sad. Hua Shiyin was polite, too polite. She kept some distance. "It's not that. You're a good person, but we're not a good match," Hua Shiyin answered calmly. She gazed into the distance, looking sad. At that moment, she saw another beautiful woman, looking pure and noble. "Master," greeted a young man, bowing before the woman. Tianqi Shui nodded at the young man and looked at Hua Shiyin. "Shi Yin, why do you do that? Why did you go to Ba Huang? You knew that he had already left. He went to that mysterious world. He's extraordinary and talented. He will maybe become our leader someday. And he's just making you wait. Why can't you forget about him?" Hua Shiyin smiled but didn't reply. Some things couldn't be explained. "Shi Yin, you must understand something. Maybe he will never come back," Tianqi Shui said when she saw that Hua Shiyin remained silent. "Even if he doesn't come back, I will always miss him forever. And I will always hope," smiled Hua Shiyin. Tianqi Shui smiled wryly and shook her head. "Poor you." She couldn't understand why Hua Shiyin kept waiting for someone who would probably never come back, and who wasn't even interested in her. Was he that outstanding? "I'm going back," said Hua Shiyin, nodding to Tianqi Shui. Tiantai has been reconstructed in the boundless world. At that moment, Hua Shiyin heard a voice, and her heart started pounding. She glanced around but saw nothing. A brilliant light appeared with a hum, and some scriptures appeared in front of Hua Shiyin. The scriptures floated in the air in front of her. They were dazzling to behold. Tianqi Shui was astonished too. Ancient scriptures. She looked around but saw nothing. At that moment, another brilliant light appeared in front of Hua Shiyin. Some cosmic energies condensed in front of her. Hua Shiyin couldn't see anyone. She looked at the two things, then she raised her head and cried out, "Lin Feng, I know it's you. Why don't you want to see me?" Nobody replied to her. Hua Shiyin shouted for a long time, but nobody appeared. She started crying, hot tears spilling down her cheeks. Finally she gave up, taking the scriptures and the 7-colored Taoist robe made of feathers and whispered, "Lin Feng, I know you're here." "Is it him?" shouted Tianqi extremely loudly, her voice spreading everywhere. Indeed, ancient scriptures and imperial weapons, that could only be Lin Feng. Otherwise he wouldn't have offered them to Hua Shiyin. However, he hadn't even showed himself. It seemed that he had left. Tiantai has been reborn in the boundless world. Hua Shiyin could almost hear that voice in her brain. She put the scriptures and the imperial weapon away and left. She didn't continue looking for Lin Feng. She knew that if Lin Feng had wanted to see her, he would have come. If he didn't want to see her, she couldn't force him. She was stunned but elated. Tiantai had been reborn in the great world. Tian Qixue looked around, but also saw nothing. Lin Feng simply flew away. He had come back to the small world. He wanted to see the people who really mattered to him. His family, his close friends. He hoped they were all fine. If Hua Shiyin wanted to find Tiantai, she could try and find Tiantai. With the ancient scriptures and the imperial weapon, she could protect herself. After leaving the snowy mountains, Lin Feng crossed Dragon Mountain. He went to the Tang clan, but Tang Yi and Tang Rui had already left. The elders were still there, however. The tree was still there in the garden, where Lin Feng remembered Yu Yu. He didn't know where she was. Mr. Tang told Lin Feng that Yu Yu had never come back since the last time. Lin Feng was very worried. Maybe she hadn't come back, because she had gone to the great world. It had been 10 years. She would have had no reason not to come back. Lin Feng didn't spend too much time at the Tangs. He gave some presents to her parents and left. He didn't go to the imperial palace this time. He didn't need to go. Junemo, she had come back to the small world, and would be able to go himself. He had to get back to Shuiyu. He hadn't been back for 10 years. Wu Shang had probably grown up. Chapter 1839. Small king of the underworld Shuiyu had changed a lot. After all the emperors had come to Shuiyu, the netherworld demon emperor and empress Xi's small worlds had appeared, and their qi covered the whole country. Shuiyu had become a paradise for cultivators, and many people came to Shuiyu to practice cultivation. The country had been developing for 10 years already, and it wasn't a country anymore. It was now an empire, the Empire of Shuiyu. It had also become much bigger. Some neighboring countries had been absorbed by the Empire of Shuiyu. Shuiyu now ruled over the whole Shuiyu region. Dragon Mountain, Black Feather, and so on were low-level empires. The Empire of Shuiyu had already surpassed them. There were many geniuses in the Empire of Shuiyu. There were millions and millions of Tian-level cultivators there, and sometimes, one could see Zun cultivators too. In a place like Shuiyu, Tian and Zun-level cultivators were considered extremely strong. Yangzhou City was the capital of the empire, and was developing very quickly. Living conditions were better there than anywhere else in the country. Everybody wanted to move to Yangzhou City, where there were many strong cultivators and many cultivation resources. People were rich there. Lin Feng would find it difficult to recognize Yangzhou City this time. Everything had changed. There were lofty buildings and skyscrapers everywhere. There were also gigantic parks, luxury restaurants, and hotels. The Lovesickness Forest restaurant was a famous restaurant there, and was known for having the best alcohol in the country. It was said that the Lovesickness Forest was a place in the former capital, where the First Lady of the Empire had lived for a long time. Back then, the imperial city of Shuiyu wasn't Yangzhou City. No other restaurant had liquors quite as good as theirs. In the Lovesickness Forest restaurant, there were the most beautiful women and the best liquors. Everybody said that when traveling to Yangzhou City, you had to go to the Lovesickness Forest restaurant and drink their strongest liquor. That way, you could see the most beautiful women. The Lovesickness Forest restaurant was an open-air restaurant. It was neither luxuriant nor extravagant, but the decorations were tasteful, and the place was quite spacious. There were many pavilions of people who were drinking all sorts of strong alcohol. Beautiful women were dancing here and there. There were many young men who had the strength of the Zunqi layer, but when they drank the specialty of the restaurant, their cheeks still turned red. The women who were dancing were half naked and looked extremely beautiful. Men loved that kind of place. Even 15-year-old teenage boys loved the place. Besides, not only did those women look seductive, they also knew how to dance properly. Brilliant! Shouted a teenage boy, drinking a sip of alcohol and watching the beautiful women. He didn't hide the fact that he was aroused. It wasn't his first time there. Besides, he was sitting at the best table of the restaurant. His social status was probably very high. He also looked strong. A loud sound spread in the air as someone slapped the young man. The young man's guard didn't even dare say anything. He just lowered his head and continued looking at the beautiful women. They were all pretty and charming. The young man's social status was extraordinary, and someone dared slap him. That person had a high social status too. The young man smiled and said, "Sister, please sit." "You little bastard. You want to die," said the beautiful woman. She looked young, but nobody really knew how old she was. The young man smiled and giggled helplessly. He was afraid of that woman. They were hardly alone in the Lovesickness Forest restaurant, as there were many other people around. There were two young men as well, looking perverted and staring at the women. They hoped the women would strip. "Brother, I've heard that the wildest women of Yangzhou City were in the Lovesickness Forest restaurant." "It's not a false rumor, it seems," said one of the young men, smiling evilly. The one he called brother downed his glass and smiled. "Well, I've heard the exact opposite. I've heard that they never sleep with men." "I've heard that as well, but I don't believe it," said the other one, smiling indifferently. "Why don't you believe it?" asked his big brother. "Because after I sleep with them, then the rumor will just be a rumor," said the young man, smiling even more. His brother laughed. "Give it a try then." The young man stood up and walked up to the dancing stage. "Young master, please stop," said a beautiful woman who was performing a sword dance. She pointed at the young man with her sword. "I don't want to stop. What if I continue?" said the smiling young man. At that moment, dazzling lights appeared and all the other women looked at him furiously. "You can watch from 10 meters away, not closer," said one of the women calmly. However, the young man didn't listen and continued walking. Ice-cold lights appeared. One of the women released sword chi to surround him. Many people gasped with amazement when they saw that incredible sword attack. Few people knew that the dancers of the Lovesickness Forest restaurant were sword cultivators. But when the sword moved towards the young man, it didn't pierce through his skin. He just grabbed it with his hands. The sword broke, and the young man forced the woman into his arms. The other women surrounded them and released powerful energies. The atmosphere became oppressive. His big brother was still sitting there, drinking alcohol and smiling. It was a small place. His little brother was safe. As expected, the sword lights around him broke apart, and the women's expressions changed drastically. That young man was strong, and could easily defeat them. He had broken through to the Zunqi layer. "Oomph." The teenager stood up, looking furious as he said, "Stop." When the young man saw the speaker who was even younger than him, he smiled coldly, and put his hand on the woman's face. He smiled and said, "Who are you?" The furious young man was even more furious. Some people surprisingly didn't recognize him. In Yangzhou City, everybody knew him, because he was famous. "Lin Wuxiang," said the young man icily and walking forwards. "Small king of the underworld, Lin Wuxiang." Even though the young man had never seen Wuxiang, he had heard about him. In Yangzhou City, everybody knew about small king of the underworld Wuxiang. He was very famous. He had broken through to the Xianqi layer when he was 9 years old, and through to the Tianqi layer when he was 12, and now he was 15, and had broken through to the Zunqi layer. He was strong, but he also had an incredible social status because of his brother, Lin Feng. Of course, the only woman who dared tease him was Xiaoya, nicknamed the Evil Queen. The Evil Queen had raised him with punches. She was very strict. Words were useless on him. Lin Wuxiang already controlled earth abstruse energies. He started by throwing a fist out. However, his punch ended up moving towards the woman, so he had no choice but to recall his energies. The young man had put the woman in front of him. At that moment, that young man punched out, using a golden punch which immediately crashed onto Wuxiang's body. The young man's big brother was confident. The small king of the underworld? They were in a tiny little empire. Xiaoya didn't move either. She was also confident that the small king of the underworld would solve the problem. She would just watch, even if Lin Wuxiang got injured. Chapter 1840. Deadly injuries. Some of Lin Wuxiang's bones broke. He looked furious. He suddenly looked like a demon, and started absorbing endless strength. He condensed abstruse energies, and broke his opponent's golden punch. Another punch arrived. He didn't flinch, he continued meeting his opponent's attacks. "You want to die," said the young man icily. His golden abstruse energies turned into a sharp sword which moved towards Lin Wuxiang's punch. However, gauntlets appeared on Lin Wuxiang's hands. His earth armor broke, and the golden lights pierced through his skin. He started bleeding. There was a metallic ringing as the earth punch broke the golden punch apart, and then moved towards his opponent's head. How cruel, thought the crowd when they saw that. The small king of the underworld was cruel and fearless. The young man's expression changed drastically. He released even more golden energies. His eyes turned golden, and golden strength emerged from them. Piss off, he shouted furiously. Lin Wuxiang had the sensation that his head was going to explode because of that loud voice. His opponent was also using soundwave strength. He knew that his attacks were powerful. But he should have known that people who dared act like this in the Lovesickness Forest restaurant were really strong. There were only 5 young people who dared act like this in there. But he didn't mind because he knew that he was stronger than them. In the whole empire of Shuiyu, people who were that young and had already broken through to the Zunqi layer were rare. Of course, Lin Wuxiang was one of the exceptions. Arg! A powerful strength emerged. 9 dragons appeared behind Lin Wuxiang. It was as if he had received all of Yu Menghe's powers. The 9 dragons were powerful. Bestial qi filled the air and shot at his opponent. His opponent raised his head and golden light beams shredded the air before moving towards Wuxiang's head. How strong! He must be from abroad, and not from Shuiyu, thought Xiaoya when she saw the young man who was fighting against Wuxiang. The 9-headed dragon roared as it charged towards the outsider. Wuxiang also immediately grabbed his opponent with 2 hands. Golden lights kept attacking him, blood splashed, but his spirit swallowed it. You're insane, said the young man, staring at Wuxiang. This kid was insane. People around were stupefied. No wonder that he was called the small king of the underworld. The dragon's head started nibbling on the outsider's body. Pieces of flesh were torn off. At that moment, a powerful force emerged, and a thunderclap rang out. Suddenly, Lin Wuxiang and his dragon were hurled away. Weapon! Lin Wuxiang was stunned. A dazzling golden blade had appeared in his opponent's hand. It contained cosmic energies. Many people in the restaurant were astonished. How incredible! The young man looked furious. His brother's face twitched. People from the small world dared attack his brother like that. They wanted to die. Brother, kill him, said the older brother icily. He didn't need to tell him. His younger brother already wanted to kill Wuxiang. He raised his golden blade and charged. Wuxiang, run, shouted Xiaoya. She also started moving. However, the gigantic blade was too fast. Blood splashed. Xiaoya sensed that her heart was pounding. Her eyes were bloodshot. Wuxiang was Lin Feng's only brother. No, shouted Xiaoyu furiously. She just saw an arm fly away. Blood splashed and Wuxiang shouted, Sister, run. Lin Wuxiang started running at the same time, fleeing the Lovesickness Forest restaurant at full speed. Xiaoyu quickly caught up with him. She was faster than him. Another blade reached them. Blood gushed out as 2 women were killed. Fissures appeared in the whole restaurant as it started to collapse. The young man looked insane and bloodthirsty. He stared at the 2 people who were escaping. You think you can escape? Where do you think you're going? You dare touch me. You're going to die, screamed the young man. Released even more qi. People's hearts were pounding. What a scary battle. Where was this person from? Why had he come to Shuiyu? He even had weapons. Nobody could compete with him. Who's that guy? He even dares try to kill Wuxiang, thought the shaken crowd. The young man's older brother moved next to him and asked, You're not injured, are you? I was just wounded, replied the young man icily. He was bleeding and looked ferocious. Brother, I will definitely kill them. Kill them? We came here because of the Netherworld Demon Emperor and Empress, she's historical vestiges. And coincidentally, we came across someone who works for the local government. We can kill him, said the older brother indifferently. It sounded easy when he said that. They both had imperial weapons and were in a small empire. They felt like kings here. Wuxiang and Xiaoya went back to the imperial palace of Yangzhou City. They were bleeding. Everybody looked at Wuxiang's injuries. Their faces turned deathly pale. Who did that? Xiaoya, what's going on? Everyone was asking questions. Everybody loved Wu Shang in the imperial palace, and now someone had cut off one of his arms. They were furious. Everybody go into the deployment spell. We'll talk about it later, said Xiaoya. Everybody was stupefied. What had happened? Xiaoya looked scared. Wu Shang, why don't you use your blood to recover? I can't recover. Someone used a weapon with cosmic energies to cut it off. The injury is too severe, Wu Shang said icily. A weapon with cosmic energies? Everybody was stunned and pulled long faces. Who had imperial weapons? A very high-level imperial weapon. The opponent was powerful, said Xiaoya. She took Wu Shang into the small world. Those people had to be from the great world. They couldn't be from an ordinary group. People who had such weapons were from powerful families. Xiaoya wished Lin Feng had been there. Even though many strong cultivators protected the palace, they were just cultivators of the top of the Zunqi layer. They couldn't fight against people who had imperial weapons. If their enemies followed them here, the situation could quickly deteriorate. Xiaoya, what's going on? Asked Lin Hai. He arrived and saw that one of Wu Shang's arms had been cut off. He was astonished and very sad. Who had cut off his son's arm? Uncle Lin, we came across some powerful people. Go and inform everyone, please. We must get ready to escape, Xiaoya said to Lin Hai. Lin Hai was stupefied. Some people dare defend their family in the empire of Shuiyu? But since Xiaoya talked that way, it was serious. They had to react quickly. Besides, Lin Wushang was badly injured. He might die from his injuries. Wushang, will you be all right? Lin Hai asked Wushang. Uncle Lin, it's nothing incurable, spat Xiaoya. Lin Hai just replied, all right, let's retreat for now. I'm going to inform the two strong cultivators of Jiang'a. Chapter 1841. Jiuyu in the Small World. Everybody used to think that their world was the continent of the 9 clouds. Now, everybody understood that it was only a subpart of it. At the center of the small world was Bahuang and Jiuyu. Bahuang was a place with a sea made of desolate qi. When thinking about Jiuyu, most people thought of the 12 empires, but they rarely thought of the origins of that place. In the central part of Jiuyu, in a remote and inhabited place, everything was black. There were gigantic rivers, and the waters of those rivers were black too. It was a forbidden area, the forbidden area of Jiuyu. According to legends, people who went there usually died, so nobody dared go there, creating one of the forbidden areas of the small world. This place couldn't be compared to the forbidden area of Ganyu, the Death Valley. Even in the ancient times, emperors didn't dare go to the forbidden area of Jiuyu. However, this time, some people had broken the rules. There was a group of people flying above the black waters of Jiuyu. They looked extraordinary, and all of them were staring at the water. A gigantic whirlpool hundreds of meters wide yawned beneath them, as big as a city, and looked incredible. It was impossible to know how deep it went. Jiuyu referred to the 9 netherworlds, as opposed to the 9 clouds. According to legends, this whirlpool led to hell and contained evil palaces. At least in the small world, nobody dared go there. When people went there, they could die. And in any case, they ended up in the 9 netherworlds, which was like taking a trip to hell. However, on that day, these people were an exception. Someone turned black like the water of the 9 netherworlds, looking like a living corpse from hell. That person jumped into the water. A powerful strength tried to corrode his body, but it didn't affect him. Surprisingly, he could stay in the 9 netherworlds, in the forbidden area of Jiuyu. Will the 9 netherworlds explode? Asked someone at that moment. The person in the black waters raised their head and looked up. He said, the strength is fermenting. The eruption is imminent. The other person nodded, their eyes twinkled. The demon sealing sage sealed a great world in his small world, and hid it here. We've been looking for 5,000 years and finally, we've found it. We'll obtain great things. Indeed, replied the person in the water. They looked a bit scared and asked, do you think he left an imprint in this small world? The 9 netherworlds are useless to him. Even if he left an imprint and knows we're here, I don't think he cares much, answered the person in the air. By the way, did you do what I asked you? I asked some young people to take care of it. They went to Shuiyu to check. Since Shuiyu is the demon-sealing emperor's homeland, he sealed a world here for that reason. I've heard that the Netherworld Demon Emperor and Empress, she had appeared in Shuiyu. I wonder if historical remains have appeared too, said the person in the black waters. The other person nodded and continued looking around. People from the small world knew nothing about what was happening there. After coming into this world, these people had remained very discreet and had directly gone here. Apart from the demon sealer's things, they weren't interested in anything else in this world except Shuiyu, because it was his homeland. Lin Feng didn't know about them either, obviously. When those people had come into the small world, the strong cultivator of the celestial palace of the punishing thunders hadn't dared say anything. He had held his tongue, and he didn't tell Lin Feng and the others about them either. The celestial palace of the punishing thunders couldn't afford offending these people, who could kill their cultivators just by glancing at them. Even Qingdi Mountain didn't dare offend such people. At that moment, Lin Feng was walking through Shuiyu, enjoying the landscapes. It felt good to be there, and he was smiling happily. In the distance he saw Yangzhou City. Yangzhou City has become so big. It's much bigger than before, smiled Lin Feng. Finally he was back. He had left his family and friends for such a long time. If they wanted to, he could take all the people from Yangzhou City back with him, and nothing would happen to them. Dad, Mom, I'm back, proclaimed Lin Feng, smiling widely. And Xiaoya, Xiangyi, and the others, how were they doing? Little Wu Shang, you must have grown up. What do you look like now? Thought Lin Feng happily. How was everyone after 10 years? Lin Feng's godly awareness suddenly started shaking. He stopped smiling and frowned angrily. The thread of godly awareness is broken, thought Lin Feng suddenly. Back when he had left, he had given everyone a thread of godly awareness. Nothing had happened to those threads of energies in the last 10 years. The only possibility was that something serious had happened. His smile disappeared, and he started moving like lightning. His boat appeared and he turned into a light beam. In the blink of an eye, people in Yangzhou City sensed a powerful strength in the sky. Many vendors' booths were even blown away. They raised their heads and only saw a beam of light passing by. Chapter 1842. Jiuyu's government. The two young men from the Lovesickness Forest restaurant were already in the imperial palace of Yangzhou City. People around them were terrified. For them, this was a holy place, a symbol of the prosperity of Yangzhou City. There were many Zoom cultivators in the imperial palace. Now they were in danger. An arrogant-looking young man was holding a gigantic golden blade. His blade contained a powerful strength which terrified people. It seems to be an imperial weapon. Back then, when the Netherworld Demon Emperor's small world appeared, many strong cultivators there had imperial weapons. Thanks to their imperial weapons, they were extremely strong. With those people and their imperial weapons, Yangzhou City's imperial palace is in danger, thought the crowd, shaking and staring at the guards of the imperial city. The strong cultivators from Jiang'a were all injured now. Come here and die. Maybe I will spare their lives if you do, sneered the young man, smiling icily. He was looking for Lin Wushang. Young master, go and hide in the deployment spell, said the strong cultivators of Jiang'a. Even though the opponent's cultivation level wasn't high, their imperial weapons were high-level ones. They were much more powerful than the imperial weapons the Qi clan had used back then, and contained very hard gold cosmic energies. They had to be much stronger to fight against people who had such weapons. A man has to bear the consequences for his actions. Therefore, I have to bear the consequences of my actions, said Lin Wushang, grinding his teeth. Wushang, shouted Xiaoya. What could we tell your parents if something happened, and your brother? Lin Wushang's eyes were bloodshot. He looked at Lin Hai and Yu Menghe and said, Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I won't regret anything if something happens. If something happens to me, it means I'm weak. Don't avenge me if I die. Let Lin Feng do it. Wushang, you're not allowed to go, cried Yu Menghe. She had only one son by her side. How could she let him die? This bunch of insects is really noisy, said the young man, cutting the air. In a flash, fissures appeared in the sky. The small world couldn't handle such a powerful attack, as spatial tears appeared everywhere. Move away, said Xiaoya, throwing herself at the blade energies. Thunder clapped, and Lin Wushang's face changed drastically as he shouted, Sister Xiaoya, There was another crack of thunder, and a bright light appeared. A curtain of lights surrounded Xiaoya. The attack didn't kill her, but she had landed in a fissure. "Xiaoya!" shouted Lin Feng furiously. He had arrived, and charged towards the fissure. Lin Feng landed in the fissure, his face like a madman. The fissures didn't affect him at all. He immediately jumped into the lights. "Xiaoya!" shouted Lin Feng. Lights appeared and surrounded her body, preventing her from dying. He drew a deep breath of relief. Mr. Xiao had given her something to protect her. She hadn't died. "Brother Lin Feng!" shouted Xiaoya happily when she saw Lin Feng. Lin Feng took her in his arms and came out of the fissure. They appeared in another place in Yangzhou City. The two then went straight back to the Imperial Palace. "Lin Feng! Young master!" The people in the Imperial Palace were stupefied. Lin Feng was back. Yu Menghe wiped off her tears. Lin Feng was back. In her eyes, Lin Feng was a god. Nothing was impossible for him. "He's Lin Feng." The distant crowd watched him. Was that Lin Feng, the legendary cultivator they had heard of? Surprisingly, he looked so young. Lin Wuxiang stared at Lin Feng. The last time he had seen him, he was only 2 years old. He didn't remember his older brother that well. He had only heard the adults talk about him. "Is that my brother?" Lin Wuxiang smiled happily. Surprisingly, in such circumstances he managed to smile. "Bro!" shouted Lin Wuxiang. Lin Feng looked at Lin Wuxiang. That was his biological brother, Wuxiang? When he saw Lin Wuxiang smile even though one of his arms was missing, he was furious. "Who are you?" he asked the two cultivators icily. How come people with such powerful imperial weapons had appeared in Shuiyu? This was strange. Those people look like their savior has come back. But to me, it's just one more person who's going to die, sneered the young man, smiling icily. Lin Feng waved his hands and sword lights rose to the skies. A horrible shriek spread in the air. The young man's arm fell down from the sky. "No!" The young man's face changed drastically, desperate and ferocious. He looked at Lin Feng with murder in his eyes, and pointed at Lin Feng with his golden blade. However, suddenly, some death strength penetrated into his eyes, and had the sensation that he was going to die. He looked even more furious. "Bro, help me steal his imperial weapon, I will kill him myself," said Lin Wuxiang. He looked insane as he rose up into the air. When Lin Feng heard his brother, he didn't kill the man, instead landing next to Wuxiang. There was a glitter of light, and a powerful and heavy blade appeared in Lin Feng's hands. That blade was a level 8 imperial weapon, and contained incredible earth cosmic energies. Lin Feng had found it in the ring of a strong cultivator he had killed in the Celestial Evolution Palace. "Help yourself," said Lin Feng, giving the blade to Lin Wuxiang. Wuxiang nodded and threw himself at the other cultivator with the blade. Those young men relied on their imperial weapons to be dangerous. Now the tables were turned. The young man's face changed again. He could sense that the weapon Lin Feng had given to his brother was even scarier than their own. He realized that he had made a grave mistake. "Die!" shouted Lin Wuxiang, furiously throwing himself at the young man. Lin Feng threw himself at the older one. That one was stupefied. He also took out an imperial weapon as he stared at Lin Feng. Lin Feng charged him fearlessly. That person sensed oppressive energies surround him and shouted, "Stop! Where are you from?" asked Lin Feng icily. That person was stupefied and couldn't stop shaking. He closed his eyes and shouted, "Listen to me." "Speak," said Lin Feng icily. "I know that I can't compete with you, but you can't kill me. If you kill me, it will activate the imprint I have. You can't offend my group. Let's forget about this," said the young man hastily to Lin Feng. He opened his eyes again and looked at Wuxiang. "Hurry up and stop fighting. Otherwise, your entire clan will be destroyed." Lin Feng looked at him straight in the eyes. 9 netherworlds water appeared and pierced through his eyes, corroding his will. Demonic will started flowing throughout his body. "Where do you come from?" repeated Lin Feng icily. Lin Feng could sense something strange in that cultivator's will. He released his godly awareness and attacked the man's will further. His godly awareness shook violently. The older brother's body became dazzling and suddenly a silhouette appeared. "It's a godly awareness imprint," thought Lin Feng, shocked at the sight. He looked at the stronger cultivator's shadow in the air. That person was wearing a dark robe, and his eyes were dark. Dark lights twinkled in that person's eyes. They looked like the 6 great divisions in the Wheel of Karma. They were powerful and could kill people easily. A great emperor's godly awareness strength, thought Lin Feng, stunned. How come there were such strong people in Xueyu? The great emperor looked at Lin Wuxiang and said icily, "Make him stop." Lin Wuxiang looked insane. He cut one of his opponent's legs off with his blade, before turning to look at Lin Feng. "Kill him," said Lin Feng to Wuxiang. Cultivators never flinched. Lin Wuxiang had lost an arm. He had to get his revenge, and act with an indomitable will. "All right," said Lin Wuxiang excitedly. He threw himself at his opponent as the young man shouted, "Ancestor, save me." "You want to kill him?" shouted the silhouette furiously. However, at that moment, a powerful great imperial energy invaded the atmosphere. His eyes moved to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had a great sun disk, which contained powerful energies. "A thread of godly awareness dares act this arrogantly," spat Lin Feng, constricting the godly awareness with his dazzling sun disk. The silhouette shouted furiously, but the atmosphere around it kept breaking apart. "You're insane!" shouted the thread, retreating quickly. However, the sun disk was a great imperial weapon and constricted that thread of will. It surrounded him, and he disappeared inside. The crowd was trembling. A black hole appeared. The young man underneath it hadn't died, surprisingly. Lin Feng had used his full strength to attack the silhouette instead. At that moment, the young man's face turned deathly pale as he trembled all over. Lin Feng and his brother were insane. They even dared destroy a great emperor's godly awareness. And they had a great imperial weapon. "Don't kill me," pleaded that person, retreating as fast as he could. Lin Feng just looked him straight in the eyes and said icily, "Tell me where you are from, and why you came to this small world. Are there other strong cultivators in this small world?" "We're from Jiuyu's government. We came to the small world because of the demon sealing sage's forbidden area. Many people came. There are emperors and great emperors here," said that person. He had no choice but to talk. "Jiuyu's government? Demon sealing sage?" Lin Feng frowned. The demon sealing sage had to be the demon sealing great emperor, but few people knew about him. They didn't know he was called the demon sealing sage. It was like the 3 lives great emperor. People who didn't know about him called him that. People who knew about him knew that he wasn't a mere great emperor. "Where in the continent of the 9 clouds is the Jiuyu's government? How strong is the strongest cultivator who came with you?" asked Lin Feng. "Jiuyu's government is the main group in Long Night City in Purple Clouds. We're looking for the forbidden area in Jiuyu. It's an order we received from the 9 Netherworld sage. We finally found it. The strongest cultivators with us are great emperors. We didn't have time to call any stronger cultivators," answered the young man. Lin Feng was astonished. People from Purple Clouds had found a small world in the Dark Night region. That was incredible. "Why are you looking for Jiuyu's forbidden area?" asked Lin Feng. "According to legends, there is a secret palace in Jiuyu's forbidden area. But for us, people from Jiuyu's government, practicing cultivation there is very useful." Back then, the demon sealing sage went crazy and sealed a gigantic area of the great world in his small world, including Jiuyu's forbidden area, the young man answered. Lin Feng was shocked once again. The demon sealing sage was incredibly strong. He could seal entire areas of the great world inside his own small world. "I've heard that the demon sealer's homeland was Xueyu, but there are no historical remains here. What do you think?" asked Lin Feng. He thought of the Huang Sea and the small world which looked like Xueyu within it. "I noticed as well. The demon sealing sage may have sealed the historical remains somewhere else. Maybe he put them in the same small world as the one where he sealed the part of the great world," answered the young man. Lin Feng understood that there were even more mysterious things about the small world he came from. The Xueyu, which was accessible by going through the coffin in the Huang Sea, was the ancient country of Xueyu. It was a place created by the demon sealing sage. That small world really was the demon sealer's small world. However, why didn't the demonic side of the 3 lives great emperor show up there? Why had it been sealed in the Death Valley? "You can die now." The darkness in Lin Feng's eyes slowly disappeared, and he stopped controlling the young man, who limply collapsed and died. Wuxiang also killed the other young man. Surprisingly, these things were related to the demon sealing sage and Jiu Yu's government. Chapter 1843. Lin Feng's wildness. I wonder when the demon sealing sage sealed a part of the great world into his own small world. The members of Jiu Yu's government even have someone called Jiu Yu's sage. They must be incredibly strong. The one who created this small world was powerful. Unfortunately, the demon sealing sage stopped taking care of this small world. Otherwise, this small world would have been incredibly powerful, thought Lin Feng. Perhaps the demon sealer initially wanted to use this small world to relax and enjoy himself. Maybe he was happy as long as nobody destroyed it. And there was Jiu Yu's government's Jiu Yu's sage. He was probably a peerless cultivator. It was going to be difficult to remain in Yangzhou City. Bro! Lin Wuxiang walked over to Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng was saddened to see that Wuxiang had lost an arm, and he was only 15 years old. He was completely different from Xiao Chun in the small village. He had an indomitable will. Lin Feng had always been worried about Wuxiang because he had had a great life, and was born in great circumstances with everything he needed. But in the end, he was still motivated and worked hard. Lin Feng released life cosmic energies, which started flowing throughout Wuxiang's body. Lin Feng clapped Wuxiang's shoulders and said, "You're only 15 and you're already so tough. Just be careful next time." Hee. Wuxiang just laughed. Lin Feng tousled his hair. Wuxiang laughed again and said, "Dad and Mom said that when you were 15, you had started rising in the region, and that you were traveling alone. They said you were fearless and had an indomitable will. People also admired you. I'm 15, I can't be much weaker than you. But you should stay safe," said Lin Feng. He wanted nobody to have the same life he did back when he was 15. Back then he had no background, he was just traveling around alone. Wuxiang had a different life. He could stay safe. He had a choice. Lin Feng and Wuxiang landed on the ground. Lin Feng looked around and warmth filled his heart. "Dad, Mom." Lin Feng greeted his parents. Yu Menghe's eyes were still filled with tears. Lin Hai just nodded. "Little Lin Feng, what about Wuxiang's arm?" "I will heal him," said Lin Feng, releasing both of them. Lin Feng also noticed Lu Fei, Yin Shi, Yi Shui and the others, but someone was missing. He inquired, "Where's Xi and Yi?" When everybody heard him, they looked a bit strange. Lin Feng suddenly had a bad premonition, but he also understood what had happened after they told him. He had wondered about this a long time ago. She was already being controlled. "I'm going to look for her," said Lin Feng, smiling grimly. Then he added, "Dad, Mom, I don't have much time. I need to sort out some things." "All right, you can go," nodded Yu Menghe. Lin Feng slowly rose up in the air and said, "Jiang's people attend me." There was a sound of swords cutting the air. The strong cultivators from Jiang'e appeared. Their faces looked as sharp as swords. "Young master," greeted the strong cultivators, bowing before him. Lin Feng made a cutting motion, and dazzling lights appeared, materializing many imperial weapons, all containing a powerful strength. Jiang'e's cultivators were stupefied, and their hearts also started pounding. Imperial weapons, all these are imperial weapons. They had never seen so many imperial weapons. To Lin Feng, these weren't important. He had killed so many strong people who came from powerful groups. They all had great items with them, and Lin Feng had taken them all after killing them. "All of you choose a weapon," said Lin Feng calmly. Jiang's people were overjoyed. Their silhouettes flickered, and they all chose weapons they liked. They had been protecting Shuiyu for 10 years, and as time passed, they had been complaining more and more. However, at that moment, they all had the feeling that it had been worth it. Their young master had come back, and Jiang'e had probably started rising in Bahuang province. Tell everyone what I'm going to tell you now. In around 2 months, there might be tremendous changes in Shuiyu. Maybe Shuiyu will have to stop communicating with the outside world. But your lives won't be in peril. People who want to stay can stay. Those who want to leave can leave. However, those who want to leave will have to leave within 2 months," said Lin Feng extremely loudly. Many people started shaking. Shuiyu was going to change. What was going to happen in Shuiyu? Yes, young master, said the two leaders of the group from Jiang'a. Then, the strong cultivators' silhouettes flickered. They went out in Shuiyu to inform the populace. Lin Feng looked at the imperial palace. The Qixia soldiers were the guards of the imperial palace. Lin Feng had made them rise. They were legendary in Shuiyu. Qixia forces, listen to my orders, shouted Lin Feng. Qixia troops present, shouted the troops rising in the air. Same for you, go and inform the population that Shuiyu will change, said Lin Feng. Qixia forces, yes sir. The soldiers also headed out. On that day, they traveled all around the country with their beasts, from one city to another. Of course, ordinary people couldn't leave Shuiyu within 2 months. Maybe they wouldn't be able to leave Shuiyu in their entire life. Lin Feng mainly meant to inform cultivators. The empire of Shuiyu stirred. Lin Feng had come back, and had told his people that some great changes were going to happen. That maybe they were going to be isolated from the outside world. How astonishing! Many people were startled and had to choose. Did they want to stay or did they want to leave? They wanted to know what kind of changes Lin Feng was talking about. Did he mean good or bad changes? Nobody told them anything though. Lin Feng was giving them a simple decision. Shuiyu was going to change. Did they want to leave or stay? That was their choice. As the news spread, people from the imperial palace in Yangzhou City also had to come up with a decision. The majority of them decided to stay. Many people in the imperial palace were closely related to Lin Feng, and they trusted him. No matter what happened, Lin Feng was like a god to them. He cared about them and wouldn't let anything happen to them. Of course, most people were determined, but still a minority of them decided to leave. Lin Feng didn't force them to stay. They were all free. A few days later, people who passed through Yangzhou City's imperial palace realized that it was empty. Nobody was there anymore. Where were the members of the imperial palace of Shuiyu? Were they all in the mysterious deployment spell? Everything was so mysterious. But like everyone else in Shuiyu, they had to decide what they wanted to do. Did they want to stay or leave? Lin Feng had given them 2 months. If they wanted to leave, they had to leave within 2 months. For them, the easiest choice was to move to countries and empires which weren't far from Shuiyu. During those days, a powerful cultivator landed in Yangzhou City and inspected Yangzhou City with his godly awareness. Many people sensed a powerful pressure. However, the strong cultivator didn't find anything. The young man who had killed his descendants was already gone. His family, his friends, and all the members of the imperial palace were gone. The man was furious, but impotent. A gigantic hand descended from the sky and destroyed the imperial palace, which turned into a field of ruins. Actually, he didn't know that Lin Feng was in Yangzhou City and was watching him. Lin Feng understood that the demon sealer's seal restrictions didn't exist anymore. Maybe back then, his purpose was just to threaten all the emperors of Bahuang. After the strong cultivator left, Lin Feng also left Yangzhou City. He started inspecting all the areas of Shuiyu. At the same time, he started creating his own small world based on Shuiyu's shape. At the top of a mountain, there was a young man seated cross-legged with his eyes closed. It was Lin Feng. In Lin Feng's spirit small world, there was a group of people who were watching everything. They were stunned. Bro, are we really going to stay in your small world? Asked Lin Wuxiang, staring at Lin Feng. This place was just like Shuiyu. For Wuxiang, there was no difference between Yangzhou City and the place where he was at that moment. It's just that they were in another world. Wuxiang, Yu Menghe, and the others were all astonished. This was the small world of a strong cultivator? Lin Feng had become so strong that he could already create a world which looked just like Shuiyu. Wuxiang, this is my small world, but it's also Shuiyu. In the future this world will become very big, said Lin Feng smiling. Lin Hai frowned and walked over to Lin Feng. Little Lin Feng, you really want to imitate Shuiyu in this world? Dad, I gave everyone the option to stay or leave. Those who choose to stay want to stay in Shuiyu. I can't change their world, their everything. They want to keep their houses and everything, said Lin Feng. I will constantly make this world better. I will make it become powerful. In 100 years, you will maybe see the whole world, not just Shuiyu. Chapter 1844. Changes in the Empire. Lin Feng appeared in a forest in Shuiyu. He inspected each of its corners with his godly awareness. He memorized everything perfectly. Then, he continued traveling using his boat. Soon people who had decided to stay would have to be moved. Lin Feng wanted everything to stay the same, because it was his homeland. He could change anything anytime anyway. After a short time, Lin Feng appeared in an ancient village. The people there were ordinary people. Even those who knew about cultivation and practiced it had low cultivation levels. The majority of them were cultivators of the qi layer. "Sister, did anyone tell you anything about moving?" asked Lin Feng, walking up to an older woman wearing clothes made of animal skins and smiling. "I did. Troops riding beasts came to the village and told us about it," said the woman. She smiled and stood up. "You must come from very far away. Have a seat. I'll get you some water." Lin Feng didn't refuse. He took the glass of water. It was fresh and cool. He smiled and said, "Do you know what the people in the village intend to do?" The woman shook her head. "We're in the cultivation world. Nobody knows us. We don't know about anything. We don't need to worry. Why would we waste our energy to travel over hundreds of kilometers? We don't want to leave Shuiyu, anyway." The woman kept smiling. In the distance, a group of strong men with spears arrived. They looked like hunters. There were animals at the top of those spears, showing a successful hunt. "Miss, who's that?" asked one of the young men. The woman looked at him and smiled. "He's passing through our village, so I gave him a glass of water." "Brother, stay with us tonight. Let's get drunk and have a barbecue," proposed the young man, smiling wholeheartedly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't refuse. In the evening the villagers gathered, grilled some meat and stuffed themselves. Everybody danced together, and was having fun. Lin Feng was in the crowd and enjoyed himself too. He loved it. On that day, Lin Feng even slept around a fire. Everybody slept next to one another. On the second day, he left the village. He continued traveling around the country. The day arrived. Many people in the empire of Shuiyu were afraid. 2 months had passed. Some tremendous changes were going to happen in the country. But was going to happen? Lin Feng, his family, many of his friends, the Wuxia forces, and Jiang's cultivators were all in the imperial palace of Yangzhou City in the empire of Shuiyu. "Are you all sure you want to stay? If you want to leave, it's not too late. I don't want you to feel pressured," Lin Feng asked the crowd. He had warned everybody that some tremendous changes were going to happen in Shuiyu. "We're sure. We want to stay and protect Shuiyu forever," said the Wuxia forces. Shuiyu was their homeland. They had to protect it. They would never give up. "All right." Lin Feng nodded and looked at the members of Jiang. "Jiang rules over Bahuang now. You can leave and go back if you want." Jiang's cultivators clenched their fists. What a difficult decision. Many people didn't leave Shuiyu because they were from there. But Jiang's people were from Jiang and Bahuang. Something was going to happen. Maybe they would be stuck in Shuiyu forever. "Young master, I have decided to stay," declared someone. His voice sounded like a whistling sword. He knew that if he went back to Jiang, he would enjoy a high position and live in comfort. But it would be difficult to become stronger. If they stayed with Lin Feng, they would maybe have more opportunities, or maybe not. But they were willing to take that risk. "All right, I'm not asking you again then," said Lin Feng. Suddenly, his spirit materialized in dazzling form, and a page of his spirit dashed to the sky. "What's that?" People raised their heads and stared at that one-page golden scripture. There was a very detailed drawing on that page. It looked like an entire world. Brilliant lights appeared. The book became gigantic, and turned into a light curtain, which blotted out the sky and the sun. People were astonished. "Something is falling down on Yangzhou City," shouted some people. It was an illusional world. That world was condensing. It almost looked real. People in Yangzhou City were stupefied. It wasn't a book, it was a world, but it looked like a mirage. He's condensing qi into a small world. The strong cultivators of Jiang were staring at Lin Feng. They had heard that emperors could create small worlds, but they had never seen it happen in front of their eyes. Qi was condensed, and then turned into a solid world. The stability of the small world depended on the strength of the cultivator. However, Could Lin Feng really create a small world like those strong cultivators created? What did Lin Feng want to do? Very quickly, people from the entire empire of Shuiyu landed in the small world, without exception. Qi condensed, and the most amazing part was that as the world expanded, they saw it for themselves. The two worlds were converging. Was that the tremendous change they had heard of? Who would tell them what was going on? Yangzhou City Imperial Palace. People in the Imperial Palace of Yangzhou City were startled as they stared at the mirage. They could see Yangzhou City, the exact same Yangzhou City. Stabilize, shouted Lin Feng. The qi condensed even more and suddenly, people from the empire of Shuiyu found themselves shaking violently. The illusion descended from the sky even faster. Was something good happening? Or bad? Finally, the mirage descended from the sky and landed in the empire of Shuiyu. The worlds completely fused together as the qi condensed. The crowd realized they were still in the same place. Nothing had happened. However, they sensed a strange qi all around them. What happened? Thought many people. Their hearts were pounding. Not knowing what had happened terrified them. They didn't know that Lin Feng was the only one left in the world they were in before. He was watching a whole world emerging. Qi continued condensing. It wasn't qi anymore, it was a real world. What a strange world. It's my own world, smiled Lin Feng. That world looked tiny to him. But for the people inside, it looked normal. They were still in Shuiyu, the country they knew. They didn't know they were in another small world. Lin Feng appeared in his small world. Bro, why did you disappear all of a sudden? Lin Wuxiang asked Lin Feng. He was astonished and so was everybody else. They were all staring at him, waiting for him to reply. However, Lin Feng just laughed. He didn't say anything. A strong cultivator from Jiang'a looked at him. His eyes were twinkling and he asked, Young master, that's still the empire of Shuiyu? Lin Feng smiled and said, It's still the empire of Shuiyu, and it will always be. You will also always stay in the empire of Shuiyu, you understand? The strong cultivator looked at Lin Feng in a deep and meaningful way, and then he nodded. I understand. We're in the empire of Shuiyu, and it will always be. At that moment, many people from Shuiyu looked at the sky and realized that the mirage had disappeared. Nothing had changed. Some people looked around and noticed that some details had changed. It was the same, but at the same time it looked different. Many people were scared, not knowing what had happened. For example, some people were in front of a well. They were about to take out some water, and suddenly, the well had disappeared. Some other people were in their houses. There was dust and spider webs in the corner of the rooms, and at that moment, those things had disappeared. Things were the same, but at the same time they had changed too. Lin Feng's world couldn't be exactly the same. Many details were different because Lin Feng hadn't noticed them. He had done his best, however. Many people also quickly forgot about those things, because it was still as if nothing had changed. They were still in the empire of Shuiyu. Their friends and family members were still at their sides. Chapter 1845. Nothing to worry about in Lin Feng's world. The deployment spell which protected the imperial city had already disappeared. He didn't need to protect the imperial city anymore. Many trees replaced the deployment spell. Many trees also appeared in Yangzhou City, containing an incredible strength. That strength flew throughout the entire empire of Shuiyu. Lin Feng was convinced that his small world would turn into a continent soon. It would be filled with cosmic energies and holy cultivation places. At the foot of the Heavenly Grace ancient tree Lin Feng, his family and friends had gathered. They could all sense the incredible cosmic energies of the Heavenly Grace ancient tree. Lin Wuxiang's eyes twinkled and he said, Bro, that tree's cosmic energies are much stronger than the fate seed you gave me when I was a baby. Of course, that tree can make everything change in the empire of Shuiyu, smiled Lin Feng. Don't waste natural resources. Wuxiang, that's a Heavenly Grace ancient tree. It can heal your arm, and it can cleanse your body. It can make you smarter, and it can also help you practice cultivation even faster. Understood, said Lin Wuxiang. Lin Hai and Yu Meng he didn't know what had happened, but they didn't ask much. They were still in Yangzhou City in Shuiyu. Everybody else was there too. For them, nothing had changed, and everything was perfect. The reason why Lin Feng built a small world was that he wanted to protect his family members. If Lin Feng had just made his family members move into a small world by themselves, they would have been bored quickly. He had made the entire population of an empire move into his small world. This way was much better. There was life directly from the beginning, and his parents were able to have the same life as before. "Dad, Mom, I have things to do," said Lin Feng, nodding at everybody before leaving quickly. After a short time, he arrived at the border of the Empire of Shuiyu. He created some fences around his small world, so nobody would be able to leave that way. Even if people looked there, they wouldn't know that another world was on the other side. Lin Feng created a mountain range as a fence, with many trees and plants. At the same time, he also planted many Bodhi trees in the mountains. Valleys, lakes, rivers, and paths appeared. After that, Lin Feng jumped to the top of a mountain and looked around. Everything looked real. Then, Lin Feng flashed away again, and continued creating other places. He could do what he wanted. He only stopped when he was too tired and smiled happily. He had created his own world. His world lacked people and history. Of course, people could also evolve with time. But Lin Feng thought that if all these people belonged to the same empire, that wasn't enough. People would need hundreds of years to evolve that way. Of course, Lin Feng could also establish rules. For example, he could forbid people from killing. That way people would live in peace and stop fighting. However, if they stopped fighting, what would cultivation become? Therefore, he didn't establish any rules. Lin Feng sat down in the air and looked around, smiling widely. This world was his. He was a god here. I wonder if I can create things using strength that belongs to me only in my world, or cosmic energies, murmured Lin Feng. For example, the planet Earth was a world of civilization, of science and technologies. The continent of the 9 clouds was a cultivation world. Both worlds evolved differently, and people in those worlds were different and never met. However, was the continent of the 9 clouds the ultimate version of the cultivation world? All worlds worked according to the yin and the yang. They all had the earth and the sky, as well as the strength of the 5 elements. Lin Feng's small world was no exception. However, could he create new sorts of cosmic energies? And were the cosmic energies in his small world the same as in the outside world? In the outside world, could he use the same cosmic energies he could in his own small world? After thinking for a long time, Lin Feng disappeared from there. In the outside world, there was nobody left in the Empire of Shuiyu. It was unpopulated and looked abandoned. Human beings and animals had all disappeared in the blink of an eye. In neighboring countries and regions, people said that they had seen Shuiyu's people rise to the skies and disappear. When people said that, their questioners said they were either insane or drunk. However, the rumors spread around quickly, and many people said that the Empire of Shuiyu was now unpopulated. People had all disappeared between one day and the next. There were many rumors. Some people even started wondering if those people who were considered insane weren't right. More and more people came to Shuiyu to see if the rumors were true. Many people still didn't believe the rumors, but many people also started having doubts, especially when they witnessed reality. The rumors were not groundless. The gigantic territory of the Empire of Shuiyu had become desolate. There was absolutely nobody there. Nobody knew what had happened to Shuiyu, and nobody would ever know. It was a new mystery. People in the outside world started talking about Shuiyu all the time. Even many years later, people would continue wondering what had happened. Lin Feng had already left Shuiyu. Even though he missed the actual place, he tried to forget about the past and move on. Now he could focus solely on cultivation. He wanted to become a peerless cultivator. In the Huangxi, a place the strong cultivators of this small world didn't even dare visit, someone was waiting. His hair was fluttering in the wind as a powerful desolate qi kept attacking his body. According to legends, the Huangxi was an ancient battlefield, a symbol of destruction. The Huangxi back then was the real Huangxi. It has changed a lot since then. Now the destructive energies have already faded, I guess, whispered Lin Feng. He opened his third eye and started absorbing strength like a madman. His dragons chanted. The 9 heads of his dragon spirit all opened their mouths at the same time, and started absorbing desolate strength at full speed. They converted the energy into physical strength. Lin Feng walked through the Huangxi, cleansing his body with its strength. He was becoming stronger as he understood the desolate energy better and better. Who said that desolate strength couldn't turn into cosmic strength? 7 days later, in Jiuyu's forbidden area, someone who looked like a scholar appeared, wearing white clothes. However, they looked sick and their face was yellow. Even though they looked handsome, they looked really ill. However, that person still dared go into the forbidden area. That person was Lin Feng. The young man he had killed had told him that people from Jiuyu's government had gone to the forbidden area of Jiuyu. They had looked for the forbidden area for 5,000 years and were ecstatic that they had finally found it. But very few people knew about it. It was Lin Feng's first time in the forbidden area of Jiuyu. Nobody had dared go there in the past, as it was such a dangerous place. However, Lin Feng couldn't control himself. He really wanted to see it. The ground was black, the sky was black, the lakes and rivers were black. It was like hell. Lin Feng saw some people on the periphery of the forbidden area, all of them very strong emperors. Those people were definitely the strong cultivators the young man had told him about, and from Jiuyu's government without a doubt. Lin Feng didn't disturb them. He sat down in the distance and started moving his hands as if he were drawing. He was actually carving deployment spells. Lin Feng had to be careful and prepared when bumping into great emperors. These deployment spells would help him escape if required. Chapter 1846. Jiuyu, 9 Netherworlds. When Lin Feng finished carving enough deployment spells, he walked over to a river. An emperor guarded the area and looked at Lin Feng. He said indifferently, "That black water is dangerous. Go away. You can die if you come too close." "The black water is the water of the 9 Netherworlds," replied Lin Feng, raising his head and smiling. "Indeed," nodded the strong cultivator. "So it's the right place. I came here precisely because I wanted to see the water of the 9 Netherworlds. Can you really die if you get too close?" Lin Feng walked up to the edge of the river. The emperor groaned when he saw that Lin Feng refused to listen to him. If Lin Feng wanted to die, he couldn't help it. Lin Feng was just a Zun cultivator. He would definitely die if he touched the water. Lin Feng crouched and looked at the water. He slowly stretched out his hand. This place was the most famous forbidden area of Bahuang and Jiuyu. It was much more dangerous than the Huangxi. When Lin Feng put his hand in the water, he sensed some death qi penetrate into his arm and flow throughout his entire body. He turned black, as if he had been turned into a part of the water. When the emperor saw that Lin Feng was becoming black, a contemptuous smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Lin Feng hadn't listened to him, and now he was going to die. It was a dangerous place. At that moment, Lin Feng released some life energy and gradually became yellow again. He absorbed the death energy and became completely normal again. Life cosmic energy. The emperor looked at Lin Feng strangely. This young man could touch the black water. "What a powerful black water," muttered Lin Feng. He had just put his hand inside it, and death energy had invaded his body. No wonder it was the most famous forbidden area of the region. In the small world, nobody was strong enough to go here. Lin Feng put his hand away and smiled. "Master, that black water looks like the water from hell. Are the 9 Netherworlds under the water? Is it really hell?" "You can go inside and you'll see," replied the emperor, smiling icily. "You're funny, master," smiled Lin Feng widely. The emperor smiled indifferently too. However, at that moment, his smile suddenly disappeared. Lin Feng, who was smiling so widely, surprisingly, jumped into the black water. Lin Feng sensed the death qi invade his body and turned completely black. The emperor was astonished. His mouth twitched. How was that possible? Lin Feng jumped into the water. Wasn't he going to die? Lin Feng obviously didn't die. He controlled death and life cosmic energies. How could he die in the black water? However, he couldn't sense the powerful death qi. It was as if the water was trying to make him turn into a corpse. "Master, don't you want to try? I don't think the water is as scary as the legends say." Lin Feng's head popped up at the surface of the water, and he looked at the emperor. The man's mouth twitched. Many other emperors' silhouettes flickered as they arrive. They were stupefied when they saw him out there in the water. Why do I have the impression that this death strength is so special? Murmured Lin Feng. He glanced at the few emperors. The death strength in here was so pure. Purer than the death strength he understood. It was like pure death, the kind of death energy you'd only find in hell. Even though the cosmic energies he understood weren't those of the earth and the sky, because the gods didn't allow him, the death cosmic energy he understood was much thicker. However, at that moment, the death strength he was sensing was much purer. Lin Feng swam about in the black water, slowly and carefully. He calmly sensed the energy here, and a vortex started rotating around his body. He started to absorb the strength rapidly. The emperors were all staring at Lin Feng. They didn't understand. Lin Feng was a Zun cultivator. How could he be swimming around in the black water? There were two kinds of people. Those who were incredibly strong and could swim in the black water, and everyone else, who died inside or even if they got close to it. The river was quite long, and as Lin Feng swam along with the current, he could sense that the death energy was getting thicker and thicker. He had turned gray, as if his body had started decaying. He didn't even look alive anymore. Where is he going? Wondered the emperor staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng finally stopped. If he continued swimming along the current, he might really die. Lin Feng closed his eyes, floated on his back and relaxed in the black water. At that moment he really looked dead. The emperors of Jiuyu's government were astonished and glanced at one another. Lin Feng floated on his back for a few days, and let the current take him away. He hasn't died, thought the emperors of Jiuyu's government. They were all astonished. This guy was so strange. At that moment, Lin Feng opened his eyes and frowned. He could sense an incredible strength in the water. It was as if it were about to burst, like the lava of a volcano. In the distance, more people appeared in the air, all wearing black robes. They looked enigmatic and unfathomable, especially the leader of the group. He had the eyes of a demon who had come straight from hell. He could probably kill people in the blink of an eye just by glancing at them. They saw Lin Feng and glanced over at him. Lin Feng sensed a powerful strength come down on him. Celestial Master of the Seven Knights. The crowd bowed before the leader of the group respectfully. The leader nodded at them. He looked bestial and powerfully enigmatic. One couldn't guess how old he was. Who is he? Asked the Celestial Master of the Seven Knights, looking at Lin Feng indifferently. Celestial Master of the Seven Knights, he was just passing through. Surprisingly, he's been swimming in the black water for 3 days, and he hasn't died, replied one of the emperors. The Celestial Master of the Seven Knights frowned in surprise. A cultivator of the Zunqi layer had spent 3 days in the black water and wasn't dead? Did he have a special body, such as the 9 Netherworld's body or the King of Hell body? Many other people appeared in the sky, all great emperors, and they bowed before the Celestial Master of the Seven Knights and greeted him. Celestial Master of the Seven Knights. Thank you for your hard work, said the Celestial Master of the Seven Knights. You made great efforts to find the 9 Netherworlds. Do you know when it will erupt? We've been waiting for a few months already. Its strength is getting more and more intense. The explosion should be imminent, reported one of the great emperors. Lin Feng recognized him. It was the ancestor of the 2 young men he and his brother had killed. All right, said the Celestial Master of the Seven Knights. He shook his hand and a black gourd appeared. When the great emperors saw that gourd, they were startled. The Celestial Master of the Seven Knights had brought the gourd. He was about to absorb the essence of the 9 Netherworlds. What do the people of Jiuyu's government want to do? What mystery does this forbidden area hide? Wondered Lin Feng. They had just said that the 9 Netherworlds were going to explode. They probably meant the area under the black water. The Celestial Master of the Seven Knights flitted over to the gigantic whirlpool of the forbidden area. He suddenly turned black, and the strength of the 9 Netherworlds started flowing throughout his body. The Celestial Master of the Seven Knights took a deep breath and disappeared into the gigantic whirlpool, where he started absorbing the strength of the 9 Netherworlds. The strong cultivators around were impressed. The Celestial Master of the Seven Knights' strength is powerful. He jumped right into the whirlpool. Those watching were astonished. Lin Feng was still in the black water. but people didn't pay attention to him. In the eyes of the celestial master of the seven knights, Lin Feng was just passing through. The goal of the celestial master of the seven knights was the 9 netherworlds. The strong cultivators of Jiuyu's government waited patiently. Lin Feng was still in the black water, and he was waiting as well. The death strength below was becoming more and more powerful. Lin Feng had the impression that he was dying. Time passed and the black water whirlpool rotated faster and faster. More and more death strength emerged. Lin Feng couldn't handle it. At that moment, someone's voice drew Lin Feng's attention. The celestial master of the seven knights suddenly rose up in the air at full speed, the whirlpool boiling beneath him. The powerful strength started exploding under him. The black water started moving at immense speed. Lin Feng was bombarded by black waves as he kept staring at the celestial master. The black water was rising to the skies. It looked like a waterfall but upside down. It was like the atmosphere was turning into the 9 netherworlds. Chapter 1847. Hell, how powerful. The 9 netherworlds were created that way? Is it the real hell? Thought Lin Feng, studying the darkness. The fearsome darkness kept spreading through the air and blotted out the sky. Lin Feng gazed into the distance as everything was covered by the darkness. The waters moved faster and faster and kept bombarding him. Lin Feng finally rose up into the air. He could die under such powerful energies. At that moment, the black waters turned into a black ocean. The celestial master of the seven knights was at the top of the inverted waterfall. His eyes were gleaming as he watched the 9 netherworlds' black water. He waved his hand, and his 9 netherworlds gourd became gigantic before it started absorbing the strength at full speed. The inverted waterfall flew straight into the gourd. Essence of the 9 netherworlds. The strong cultivator of Jiuyu's government were astonished. The gourd was absorbing the essence of the 9 netherworlds. The 9 netherworlds gourd blotted out the sky. It contained a special kind of strength, as if it were absorbing the earth and the sky. Jiuyu's government came here to steal the 9 netherworlds' black water, thought Lin Feng, shivering. The water which flowed out of the whirlpool was powerful, raw essence strength. The celestial master of the seven knights was absorbing all its essence. The gourd he had was a great imperial weapon. There was enough essence in the gourd to form a lake. The source of the 9 netherworlds continued being sucked into the gourd. After a long time, the gourd had absorbed an incalculable amount of the 9 netherworlds' water. There were rumbles as the flow of water began to slow. Almost all of it was now inside the gourd. The ground was shaking, the sky was rumbling. Lin Feng sensed that something was happening below him. What's that? Thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng was shocked to see a building appear in the middle of the lake of the 9 netherworlds. In front of him, a gigantic palace was rising. The black palace was dreadful and imposing. It looked like a palace from hell. The celestial master of the seven knights was startled too, and stared at it thoughtfully. The main gate of the palace opened itself. It was as if something or someone was waiting for them to go in. The entrance to hell. The celestial master of the seven knights was astonished. The legends were true. This was the entrance to hell. The entrance to hell. Lin Feng was astonished. His heart started pounding. He blurted out, "Does hell really exist?" "Why wouldn't hell exist?" said the celestial master of the seven knights, smiling at Lin Feng. "You want to go inside and see?" Lin Feng's mouth twitched. What would hell look like? Lin Feng was very curious. However, what would happen if he went inside? Only dead people went to hell. That's he had always heard in his previous life. Was it true though? Maybe it was different. The cultivation world was strange. Cultivators could create worlds, so why couldn't they create hell? Lin Feng was still afraid to go to hell, but he really wanted to see what was inside. "You go in," said the celestial emperor to Lin Feng. Lin Feng frowned and stared at the celestial master of the seven knights. Jiuyu's sage controlled Jiuyu's government. He was a celestial emperor. He could easily kill Lin Feng. Even with a great imperial weapon, he couldn't do much against such a cultivator. He had no way to protect himself. "Master, what does hell look like?" asked Lin Feng, smiling at the celestial master of the seven knights. "I've never been there," said the celestial master of the seven knights. shaking his head. Master, you want me to go in, but you will help me inside, right? Said Lin Feng. However, the celestial master of the 7 knights just shook his head and said, I want to see if you can come back out alive. That's all? You want to use me to try? Smiled Lin Feng. The celestial master of the 7 knights nodded. In his eyes, Lin Feng's life had no value at all. He was just curious and wanted to have some fun. I have no choice then, said Lin Feng, shrugging. The celestial master of the 7 knights was watching him closely. Hell, I'm coming in. We'll see what hell can be, shouted Lin Feng, crossing the main gate. Instantly, Lin Feng appeared in another place. Outside, everything was darkness. However, in front of Lin Feng, surprisingly, there was a long corridor with guards wearing armor and holding weapons. When they saw Lin Feng, they glanced at him, and then turned around as if they hadn't seen him. Lin Feng turned around and noticed that the door was closed. Couldn't he get out anymore? If he couldn't go out, he had to continue. Lin Feng walked through the corridor. Very quickly, he arrived at a broken bridge. The bridge wasn't long and was surrounded by fog. There was a woman in front of the bridge. She was holding a bowl with a brew inside and smiled at Lin Feng. Mengpo's brew. Lin Feng was stupefied. He walked up to the broken bridge and looked at the old lady. At that moment, the old lady gave the bowl to Lin Feng. Of course, the bowl didn't contain the waters of oblivion. It contained black water. Should I drink it? Asked Lin Feng. The old woman nodded. Lin Feng took the bowl and downed the black water before he gave her back the bowl. Welcome to hell, smiled the old lady. She took the bowl and indicated the way to Lin Feng. Ghost world. Lin Feng frowned and continued walking on the broken bridge. He looked around at the fog, then back at the old woman. She nodded at him. Lin Feng continued walking and arrived at the end of the bridge. Since it was broken, the path stopped in the air. Lin Feng continued walking past the edge and didn't walk on the air. He let himself fall down. Lin Feng did a free fall for a short time and landed roughly on the ground. He had the feeling that his bones were broken, but he scratched his head and stood up. He glanced around and smiled. Hell, ghost world? Lin Feng laughed. He knew where he was. He had arrived in another world. Hell, or the ghost world, was just like the continent of the 9 clouds. It was just a name. Someday, Lin Feng's small world would become extremely powerful, and at that time, if he wanted, he would be able to call it hell or ghost world or whatever. However, was this place in the great world or a small world? People's cultivation levels here are extremely high. They're not weaker than people in the holy city, thought Lin Feng, glancing at the crowd. People's chi was different, and the buildings around had a different architecture. But people in here were cultivators too. But how can I go back? Thought Lin Feng, scratching his head. He had a headache. The 9 netherworlds were the entrance to another world. Since he could come in, it meant he could also leave. The problem was how. Lin Feng walked forwards and glanced around. He needed to find a place where he would be able to get some pieces of information regarding this place. Everywhere, the best places to find pieces of information were restaurants and hotels. Lin Feng quickly found a restaurant, which was also a tea house. However, the water they used to make tea was black. Lin Feng drank a cup of tea and sensed the death energy flow throughout his body. He knew that taste. He was drinking more black water. Of course, the death chi of this black water wasn't intense. The other people in the restaurant also drank black water. But they looked normal. It was a normal thing to do for them. It was just like tea in other worlds. Why do I have the feeling that this place is not connected to any other world? Muttered Lin Feng. This place was very strange. People here had their own drink black water. Did it mean that they practiced death cultivation, and that they didn't die easily? Waitress! Shouted Lin Feng, calling her over. She ran towards him and smiled. How may I help you? I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever heard of the continent of the 9 clouds? Asked Lin Feng. The waitress smiled. I don't know if the continent of the 9 clouds exists or not. But I know that many years ago, I heard some people talk about strange things. They said that this world wasn't the only world, that there were other worlds. I don't know if it's true or not. Chapter 1848. Shrine? Well, what would I do if I wanted to go to another world? Lin Feng asked the waitress with a friendly smile. Many people turned around and looked at him. Was this guy insane? He was only a Zoom cultivator. How could he go to another world? Dear guest, you're embarrassing me. You should go and ask the 10 Yama kings of the 10 Yama courts. And if they can't help you, then you should ask the great emperor of hell. Why would you ask me? I have no idea, replied the waitress, shrugging and smiling. Do you want to eat anything, dear guest? Lin Feng took out a low-level imperial weapon. It was golden and dazzling. He said to the waitress, "Bring me something to eat. If you answer some more questions, I'll give you this thing." Dear guest, that weapon is very strange, said the waitress, staring at the imperial weapon. It must be gold cosmic energy, but it's different. Something is missing from it, thought people in the restaurant, studying Lin Feng's imperial weapon. Someone stood up and walked over to Lin Feng. That person stretched out their hand and released gold cosmic energies. Their cosmic energies contained hell strength. Lin Feng was startled. Cosmic energies here were different. In this world, cosmic energies are different from cosmic energies in the continent of the 9 clouds. It's just like me, my cosmic energies are different in the continent of the 9 clouds. But here, the difference between their cosmic energies and those in the continent of the 9 clouds is clear and distinct. In the continent of the 9 clouds, apart from me, nobody can sense that my cosmic energies are different. Lin Feng shivered. Could this world be another great world? If that was the case, it meant that the world in his spirit could also become a great world. Small worlds were created by people. What about great worlds? If a great world emerged in Lin Feng's spirit, then he would be the creator. Lin Feng had created the world in his spirit. He was stunned. That was another great mystery, a mystery of life. Maybe the whole world was made of small worlds, the real worlds of cultivation. Where does your hellish weapon come from? The strong cultivator to Lin Feng. He sensed that that imperial weapon contained mysteriously different cosmic energies. I picked it up, Lin Feng replied calmly. He smiled at the waitress. Waitress, do you know who the strongest person in hell is? Dear guest, you're joking. The strongest person in hell is the almighty god of hell, of course, said the waitress naturally. The god of hell was the god of that world. Even though nobody had ever seen him, they all believed he had created the world. Have you ever seen him? Asked Lin Feng naturally. I don't know anyone who has ever seen him, said the waitress, smiling and shaking her head. Do you know where he practices cultivation? Said Lin Feng. In the hell shrine, I guess, smiled the waitress. Lin Feng frowned. Hell shrine? A shrine? The god of hell was the creator of this world, and he also had a shrine, which meant that the hell shrine was probably the most powerful group in this world. Who are you? Asked the strong cultivator, staring at Lin Feng. His eyes were pitch black. Lin Feng's questions were unusual. He was a hell zoom cultivator. How could he not know about those things, and why did he ask strange questions? The emperor found Lin Feng suspicious. He had a hell weapon with different cosmic energies, and he asked strange and complex questions. This guy was strange. Everybody in the restaurant was staring at Lin Feng. They also thought that he was strange. Lin Feng drank some black water and put his glass back on the table. He raised his head and looked back at the man. He suddenly said coolly, If I told you I were from another world, would you believe me? The teapot the waitress was holding in her hand exploded. Everybody stopped talking and stared at him. From another world? What world? Asked the emperor. The continent of the 9 clouds, replied Lin Feng. Everybody stared at him. The continent of the 9 clouds? Another world? Lin Feng stretched his hand and golden lights twinkled. He released empty space cosmic energy. He raised his hand and smiled wryly. He mused, I thought I would be able to be cleansed by more culpa strength. Cosmic strength, but you're a Zoom cultivator. On top of that, surprisingly, you control cosmic energies better than ordinary hell emperors, noted the emperor, staring at Lin Feng. He was surprised. I come from another world. Maybe you don't receive cosmic energies the same way we do, smiled Lin Feng. People slowly started to believe him. He really came from another world. Everybody, do you know how I could go back to my own world? Asked Lin Feng. After all, he was from another world. People in there had no reason to attack him. We're in one of the 10 main cities of hell, the Great Imperial Song City. Even though I don't know how you came here, if you want to go back, I'll think you'll need to find the leader of the city, Great Emperor Song. He's one of the city leaders. Maybe he knows about the mysteries of this world. But you're just a small Hell Zune cultivator or small Hell Emperor. You will never be able to meet Great Emperor Song, spoke up an emperor next to Lin Feng. Apart from the leaders of the 10 main cities of hell, they knew that there were the 10 Yama King's courts, which ruled over hell. They had also guessed that there were other worlds, but now Lin Feng was confirming it. The Great Imperial Song City, repeated Lin Feng. One of the 10 main cities of hell. How strong was Great Emperor Song? With his cultivation level, he wouldn't be able to meet such a cultivator. My name is Zhang Heng, and yours? Asked the emperor sitting down at Lin Feng's table. Lin Feng didn't mind. The cultivator was curious about him. He wanted to know what the continent of the 9 clouds looked like. Lin Feng. Lin Feng, Great Emperor Song has a great army. If you want to meet Great Emperor Song, you might consider becoming one of his soldiers, Zhang Heng said to Lin Feng. But those troops are powerfully strong, almost invincible. If you want to become one of their members, it will be very difficult. I want to go to the Great Imperial Song City to try and become one. I don't have much hope though, Zhang Heng said to him. Lin Feng actually needed people's help, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do anything in hell. What do you mean by invincible? Lin Feng asked him. Great Emperor Song's army is composed of the most heroic fighters. Every day there are battles, and to become a member of Great Emperor Song's troops, you must win 100 times without losing. Zhang Heng explained to Lin Feng. People who can win 100 times without losing must be incredible warriors. Are they willing to become soldiers? Asked Lin Feng. Many people looked at him strangely, so Lin Feng understood that he had said something wrong. Lin Feng, you're from another world. You don't understand how powerful the armies of the main cities are. Hell only has 10 main cities, and their 10 leaders are powerful cultivators. They control all the resources of hell. You have to become a member of the army if you want to have access to those resources. That's also the only way for you to become truly strong, Zhang Heng explained to him. Lin Feng nodded. Hell was another world. It was different from the continent of the 9 clouds. But there are only 10 cities in hell, and there are battles every day. Where do all those fighters come from? Asked Lin Feng. He was curious. Zhang Heng smiled wryly. If you knew how many people there are in the 10 main cities, you wouldn't ask. Besides, new strong cultivators appear every day in hell. Strong cultivators aren't lacking. Maybe hell and the world I come from are really completely different, smiled Lin Feng. At that moment, in the continent of the 9 clouds, outside of the forbidden area of Jiuyu, someone wearing white clothes opened their eyes. Their gaze was filled with sharp lights. That person stared at the forbidden area. If the celestial master of the 7 knights had been there, he would have been astonished, because that person was Lin Feng, who had gone into hell. My real body went to hell. I don't know when I'll be able to come out. It seems that everything is strange in the greater world. I need to control my real body now though, murmured Lin Feng. His eyes were twinkling. The problem is now that I have left my body, I only have 1/3 of my strength, and there are many kinds of strength I can't use. I have to be very careful, or my physical body will get injured. Then, Lin Feng's clone's silhouette flickered. He left that place and headed to Ba Huang. Chapter 1849. Famous methods. The 3 live scriptures were strange. They were similar to the celestial evolution holy scriptures, as they weren't used to increase one's cultivation level. They represented a kind of cultivation unique to themselves. The celestial evolution holy scriptures were used to make things change and evolve. They also allowed cultivators to imitate others. The 3 live scriptures were strange too. They allowed a cultivator to clone themselves. The number 3 was just an example. It could be much higher. In the continent of the 9 clouds, people all knew the name of the 3 live scriptures. However, few people had obtained them. Most people didn't even know what cultivators could really do with them. According to legends, a cultivator who had the 3 live scriptures could divide into 3: his real physical body, a Buddha, and a demon. Legends also said that those 3 bodies could live autonomous lives. They were 3 different people, and not one person anymore. Of course, nobody knew the real details. Some people said that the 3 lives great emperor hadn't stopped after 3 bodies. Maybe he had a 4th or a 5th body too. Even though those bodies could live independently from one another, they were also interconnected. So if one body studied or practiced cultivation, then the other bodies also benefited from it. Of course, that was a very efficient way of becoming stronger. Therefore, the 3 lives great emperor was a powerful cultivator. Everybody knew that. Empress, she had also studied the 3 lives scriptures. Lin Feng had also seen her use the strange powers related to them. The 3 lives scriptures didn't only contain methods to divide into several bodies, they also allowed cultivators to transform. Body transformation techniques were rare in the cultivation world, but they were usually extremely powerful. Usually, when cultivators divided into several bodies, they had less strength to fight. If a cultivator was extremely strong, they could be almost as strong as their first physical body, but there were still restrictions. The cloning power, granted by the 3 lives scriptures, worked in the same way as mitosis. Each time, a body divided into 3, and then they could divide into 3 again. The most rudimentary way of cloning oneself was to use the soul embryo. But that way, the bodies didn't have much strength, and the clone's evolution depended on their cultivation. That was what Lin Feng did. He could divide into several bodies, and his strength was also divided. However, his clones were also interdependent. They couldn't live entirely on their own. Only those who understood the technique at a high level could practice cultivation on their own and evolve in the form of several clones. When cultivators were extremely strong, if one of their clones died, it was a big loss, but didn't influence their original body. Lin Feng hadn't reached that level though. If one of his clones died, his physical body would be badly injured. Lin Feng perfectly understood that. He was now going back to Bahuang to see Xiaochen. Then, he would also need to find Hu Yu and Mu Lin Shui. They were waiting for him in Jiang'e. At the same time, he needed to tell Jiang'e's people to officially take control over the small world. The passage between Bahuang and the small world was already open, and anyone could go in and out. Additionally, the passage between the Great World and the small world was already under Tiantai's control. When the news spread throughout Bahuang, people were stupefied. Tiantai had already started rising in the Great World, and some people even realized that the legendary passage between the small world and the Great World was open. They were free to enter and exit the small world as they wished. Many people even started heading to the Great World to travel. In Hell, in the Great Imperial Song City, in the battlefield outside of the city, there were many people gathered here, some arriving and some leaving constantly. In the northern part of the battlefield, there were bleachers, and in the middle of the bleachers, there was a gate, the first city gate of the Great Imperial Song City. Among the 10 Yama Court's kings, everybody knew that Great Emperor Song was the one who loved fighting the most. Battles were incredible in the Great Imperial Song City, and those who stood out quickly drew his attention. Hell and the continent of the 9 clouds were different. In the continent of the 9 clouds, there were all sorts of powerful groups. In Hell, the 10 Yama Courts were symbols, and the strongest groups of Hell. The strongest cultivators were also in the 10 main cities. At that moment in the bleachers, many people were watching the battles. All the fighters were incredible. That guy is one of the leaders of Hell. He controls Kalasutra strength. The girl next to him is his daughter, the Kalasutra princess. And the young man there is one of Great Emperor Song's descendants, someone pointed out. Many people were startled. One of the leaders of Hell had come to watch battles? Maybe some incredible fighters were going to appear. No wonder he's one of the leaders, he looks incredible. His daughter or even Great Emperor Song's descendants all look extraordinary and extremely strong, thought the crowd. Having the opportunity to be selected as one of the leaders of Hell was incredible. One had to be extremely strong, able to oppress everyone in Hell. They could be chosen from anywhere in Hell, but they had to be celestial emperors at the least. Zhang Heng and Lin Feng were also in the bleachers watching the battles. Zhang Heng looked at the man who controlled Kalasutra's strength and said, That guy wields Calisutra strength, and he controls one territory of hell as in minister. He's very powerful. Great Emperor Song grants people such privileges in the Great Imperial Song City. Most people who become ministers come from those battle stages. Lin Feng nodded. In the jargon of the continent of the 9 clouds, those parts of hell controlled by people were maybe like small worlds. So if one could control a small world in hell, then one had lots of advantages and access to many different resources. People in hell seemed more straightforward than back home too. Zhang Heng, there are so many battle stages, and I'm only a low-level hell emperor. But even if a low-level hell emperor wins 100 battles without losing, can they really draw Great Emperor Song's attention? I think that it must be difficult to draw his attention, mused Lin Feng. There were many people fighting everywhere, on different battle stages for different levels. For each cultivation level, there were 80 battle stages, which meant that there were 80 battle stages for low-level emperors. Of course, Great Emperor Song is only one of the 10 Yama Court's kings. To draw his attention, you must be extremely strong. Even though it's difficult to win 100 battles without losing, it's also only to become a member of the army. If you want to draw his attention, you must also be a heroic member of the army. Zhang Heng told Lin Feng. Of course, there's a shortcut which can help you stand out on the battle stage. What shortcut? Asked Lin Feng. If you do all your battles one after the other quickly, or if you challenge someone who already has lots of victories, then it can help, said Zhang Heng. Each time you complete 10 battles, you can choose to have a rest, or you can choose to continue fighting on the second day. Your opponents have to be stronger and stronger. If you can complete all your battles one after the other quickly, very strong people will come and fight against you. If you can really complete 100 battles without losing, then you'll amaze everyone, laughed Zhang Heng. But 100 battles without losing, and without resting is something difficult to achieve. Don't try that. You will have many chances to lose if you do. After all, the chances to win are smaller as you progress in the battles, especially since your opponents become stronger and stronger. Your solution is not bad, said Lin Feng calmly. Zhang Heng looked at Lin Feng strangely and smiled. Do you want to try that? I'm thinking about it, nodded Lin Feng. Zhang Heng laughed and said, All right, I can't wait to see how strong you are. I will fight on a different battle stage, and we will see who's stronger. While talking, they also looked for a battle stage which corresponded to their level. Lin Feng didn't go up on one immediately, he first watched some battles. Many people in hell controlled death cosmic energy. After all, they drank black water every day. The circumstances were perfect. However, controlling death cosmic energy wasn't very useful for them, since they were all resistant to it as well. However, if an army from hell went to the continent of the 9 clouds, they would be able to annihilate many people. No wonder this place was called hell. Even if they controlled other types of cosmic energies, their cosmic energies always contained death cosmic energy. It was a natural talent they had. Chapter 1850. Lao the Calisutra minister was one of the leaders of hell. He was watching the high-level Hell Emperor's battles. Even though the great emperors of hell organized the battles, he used them to recruit army members. There was no battle stage for great emperors. At that level, Great Emperor Song could grant them a position if they desired one. If they were strong, they could obtain a high position. If they were ordinary great emperors, then they had to go through the same painstaking procedure. Therefore, high-level emperors were the highest-level contestants. The young man and the young woman next to Minister Calisutra watched the other battle stages. Minister Calisutra's daughter was a low-level emperor, and Great Emperor Song's descendant was a medium-level emperor. His name was Wang Zhua. He was one of Great Emperor Song's direct descendants, and had already fought on the battle stage. He had won 100 battles without losing, and without having a rest, a testament to his strength. When he was still a low-level Hell Emperor, medium-level Hell Emperors already feared him, not because of his social status, but because of his strength. Great Emperor Song loved war, and he loved people who were strong. If his children weren't strong, he didn't care about them. Great Emperor Song was very old, and had many descendants. There was a fierce competition between them, and they relied solely on strength to climb up the hierarchy. Wang Zhua, how many people do you think will win 100 battles without losing? Is the person you mentioned already on stage? Asked Minister Kalasutra. He wasn't dark at all. He was very pale, as if he had never been exposed to the sun. However, it was said that the Kalasutra Hell was a powerful place filled with fire. The fact that Minister Kalasutra was so pale was very strange. He wasn't the only one. His daughter Qin Yao was also very white, even paler, but she wasn't ugly. She was considered extremely beautiful, especially her eyes. People didn't dare look at her eyes. Minister, look at him, said Wang Zhua pointing at someone. That person was very tall. He looked stupid. But on the battle stage, he looked powerful. How strong? Is he agile though? He's a bit tall, observed Minister Kalasutra with a laugh. But he knew it wasn't true. He wasn't fast, but it seemed difficult to escape from him, because he immediately overwhelmed his opponents. Wang Zhua smiled. His name is He Lao. When he attacks, people are like in a cage. No matter how fast you are, it's useless against him, because he will imprison you in a cage as hard as a dungeon. He's only a low-level Hell Emperor, but today he will probably win 100 battles without losing. If you like him, he can join Kalasutra Hell, said Wang Zhua confidently. He Lao controlled death, weight, and empty space cosmic energies. He looked stupid, but he wasn't. In fact, he was very smart. His empty space and weight cosmic energies fusion was perfect. He could make cages out of them. Therefore, he was very famous. Becoming famous in the great imperial Song City wasn't easy, but He Lao was famous. Of course, if Princess Qin Yao challenges him, then He Lao won't be able to get 100 victories, said Wang Zhua, laughing and glancing at Qin Yao. He said that because he wanted Minister Kalasutra and Qin Yao to like him. He was very strong, but he was also very polite. People liked compliments, so he didn't hesitate to dish them out. Lin Feng also noticed He Lao and stared at him. That guy's cosmic energies fusions were indeed perfect. Lin Feng started thinking, imagining what it would be like to fight against him. He considered using earth and empty space energies to attack He Lao. On the battle stage, Wang Zhua pointed at a medium-level Hell Emperor, who had just jumped onto the battle stage. He was wearing black clothes and wielding a sword, and didn't look like He Lao at all. He was sturdy with a gray face and eyes. He also looked expressionless as he was blind. That cultivator is a sword cultivator. His name is Jian Meng. He's blind, very dangerous and precise though. In the great imperial Song City, many strong Hell Emperors are afraid of him. Wang Zhua laughed. He can definitely win 100 times on the battle stage of the medium-level Hell Emperors, said Wang Zhua confidently, as if he were talking about himself. Jian Meng was really strong. His sword skills were powerful. People who are blind are even better sword cultivators because their sword is like their eyes, said Minister Kalasutra when he heard Wang Zhua. Minister, look in front of us, said Wang Zhua, pointing at someone who was seated lower in the bleachers. There were pavilions filled with people. The people who were seated there had won 100 times. 20 pavilions were filled with people. I know. Those people have all won 100 battles, smiled Minister Kalasutra. Wang Zhua nodded. They are already members of army now. However, they're still here. Minister, you probably know the reason. They want to become even more famous. They want to defeat other strong cultivators who have won 100 times. That way, they will be even more famous, and they will have privileges in the government. I've heard that if you defeated 9 champions, you could obtain privileges. That's not easy, said Minister Kalasutra, smiling easily. He didn't look like a leader from hell. They must also agree on a date, otherwise, seeing 10 champions together on the same day is almost impossible. Qin Yao smiled. She looked at Wang Zhua and said, Therefore, you made my dad and me come today. My boy, you have given much thought to the matter, Minister Kalasutra smiled. I've heard that Princess Qin Yao wanted to become a member of our government. Princess, you can shine today, said Wang Zhua smiling and nodding at Qin Yao. Qin Yao smiled back, looking even more beautiful. Wang Zhua was convinced that she could defeat 9 other champions. She was very happy. In the great imperial Song City, Even a minister's daughter had to respect the rules. She had to rely on strength to obtain privileges. Down in the bleachers, many young men looked sharp and ready to fight. They already knew that the minister's daughter was there to fight against them. It wouldn't be easy. He Lao is going to get his 100 victories. It's his last battle. I wonder who will dare come and fight against him, thought many people. At that moment, someone jumped onto the battle stage. It was a handsome young man in white clothes. Everybody was astonished, not because he looked extremely strong, but because he looked like a Hellzoom cultivator. Show me your real cultivation level, challenged someone, rising up in the air to face Lin Feng. Even though people were free on battle stages, there were still rules. Otherwise, the battles would have been totally chaotic. Lin Feng was a Hellzoom cultivator, but maybe he was hiding his cultivation level. Lin Feng nodded and released cosmic strength. When that person sensed Lin Feng's energies, he nodded. Low-level Emperor, fine, you can fight. He went back into the crowd. This person is strange, observed Minister Kalasutra, looking at Lin Feng. He didn't understand. Lin Feng was using a technique to hide his cultivation level, and even the minister couldn't see his real cultivation level. Even though he's using a powerful technique to hide his cultivation level, he can't defeat He Lao, proclaimed Wang Zhua. At the same time, He Lao jumped like a demon and thunder rang out. He Lao raised his gigantic hand, which looked as big as a praying mat. He used the same technique to fight against Lin Feng, as he had used against everyone else. No low-level emperor could resist him. The battle is over, said Wang Zhua, smiling confidently. He Lao's hand came crushing down, until suddenly, he sensed a powerful strength coming at him. A cage appeared around him. He was imprisoned. He Lao's own attack. The crowd was stunned. He Lao was imprisoned. The young man destroyed He Lao's attack explosively, and moved so fast he couldn't be seen, before punching out in He Lao's direction. Explosive impacts shook the air, and He Lao was pounded relentlessly. Surprisingly, He Lao started reeling. The young man in front of him was so slim, but was as motionless as a mountain. Wang Zhua's confidence immediately disappeared from his face, unable to hide his astonishment. Chapter 1851. Blew up to La Lotus and Hellfire. Wang Zhua wasn't the only one who was stunned, as everybody else around was astonished too. Lin Feng looked ordinary, but he had managed to defeat He Lao. That definitely wasn't normal. He had even used the same method as He Lao. He Lao was extremely strong, and an expert at using earth energies. It even seemed that his body was made of cosmic energies. On the battle stage, nobody had been able to withstand a single attack from him. However, Lin Feng had attacked him and pushed him to the edge of the battle stage. He Lao raised his head and stared at Lin Feng. He didn't understand. How had Lin Feng used the same strength as he had? He Lao had created his own attack using some kind of evolution spell as well. So how could Lin Feng imitate him and carry out a more powerful attack than his own? Only Lin Feng knew that he had used pure strength. You also control death, earth, and empty space cosmic energies? He Lao asked Lin Feng, narrowing his eyes. Indeed, answered Lin Feng, nodding and releasing the 3 sorts of cosmic energies. What spell did you use just now? He Lao pressed. I don't know, said Lin Feng, shaking his head. I learned the spell from you. When He Lao heard Lin Feng, he was dumbfounded. He turned around and left the battle stage. Someone had learned his spell that quickly, and that guy's physical strength was greater than his own. He Lao looked stupid, but he was a fast learner, not stupid. He knew that Lin Feng was stronger than him, so he simply left. You're not always right, said Qin Yao, smiling at Wang Zhua. Wang Zhua just smiled wryly. I often make mistakes. There are many strong cultivators in the great imperial Song City. I hadn't thought that someone stronger than He Lao would show up today. This guy is a real genius if he defeated He Lao. He must have the strength of a medium-level Hell Emperor already. How curious. Did he learn that spell from He Lao? Asked Minister Kalasutra. If Lin Feng hadn't lied, he had incredible comprehensive ability. He had just watched He Lao for a little while, and had learned his spell? That was incredible. In the bleachers, there was someone with a white fan, and each time he shook it, snowflakes appeared. He watched Lin Feng with a smile. Do you think this guy can get 100 victories? He imitated He Lao's spell and overpowered him with strength. Maybe he can get 100 victories, said someone else in a pavilion. Someone else wearing linen clothes smiled. That person looked like a poor and pedantic scholar. However, nobody underestimated him. His name was Prince Mai. Everybody knew about him. His inescapable net spell was enigmatic and could kill people quickly. Not necessarily. He will also have to face some very strong opponents. I've heard that the Prince of the Six Abysses has come to participate to the battles. If that's the case, I'm sure he'll get 100 victories. So we'll see if he manages to win 100 times, said the smiling young man with the fan. Prince of the Six Abysses? The people in the pavilion were shocked. One of them said, if he comes, it's going to get interesting. He's maybe as strong as us. People who managed to get 100 victories were all extraordinary. They're all very self-confident, observed Minister Calicitra approvingly, looking at the young people in the pavilions. If someone manages to win 100 times in a streak, they are qualified enough to be self-confident, replied Wang Zhuo earnestly. He sounded as self-confident as before. Even if he had made a mistake about He Lao, each time he talked, it was as if fate depended on his beliefs. Minister Calicitra understood that Wang Zhuo was self-confident. But he was also right, 100 victories in a row was really incredible. And people who managed to do that were qualified to be self-confident indeed. Besides, Wang Zhuo himself had defeated 100 people in a row without having a rest. He had even defeated famous people. Therefore, he had the right to be self-confident too. Especially with great Emperor Song's blood flowing in his veins. He Lao and Lin Feng had battled, so he had seen how strong Lin Feng was. However, there would probably be other people who wouldn't believe that Lin Feng was stronger. Therefore, more people stepped onto Lin Feng's battle stage. However, they quickly realized that Lin Feng hadn't won against He Lao accidentally. He really was astonishingly strong. Each time someone stepped onto his battle stage, Lin Feng punched them and defeated them. Most of them were hurled off the battle stage. Lin Feng got his first 10 victories very easily and seemed relaxed. 10 victories. He's strong. But does he know how to do anything else? Besides, is he that familiar with the spell cage spell he imitated from He Lao? Thought the observers. At that moment, someone who looked like a gigantic goose flapped his wings and remained suspended above the battle stage, releasing cosmic energies. He had golden eyes that were staring at Lin Feng. Suddenly he disappeared. Lin Feng sensed a powerful and sharp qi moving towards him. The gigantic and powerful goose charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng raised his fist as he vanished into the wind. It was the same old punch. However, his speed was even more higher, as he used wind cosmic energies. Everybody saw how strong the goose was. That guy wasn't going to use cosmic energies against Lin Feng. In prison, said Lin Feng. A cage appeared. But Lin Feng's cage wasn't as perfect as He Lao's. That cage immediately broke when the goose attacked it. But Lin Feng could see the goose moving clearly, and his fist homed in on it as he stared at the goose's golden eyes. The goose suddenly couldn't move anymore, and had the sensation that his spirit was going to be destroyed. Even though he's not as familiar with the cage as He Lao, he is strong enough to use it in a battle against his opponents, observed Wang Zhuo calmly. He sounded trustworthy and credible. Everybody realized that Lin Feng was different and abnormally strong. He had defeated He Lao, and now he had also defeated the goose. When Lin Feng won 60 times, fewer and fewer people seemed willing to go up onto the battle stage. Lin Feng was calmly standing there. He didn't look tired at all. He had easily won 60 matches. Zhang Heng was on another battle stage, and the battles weren't so easy for him. He had just won 40 times in a row, and he looked exhausted. In the bleachers, four people appeared, two in front, two behind them. In the front were a middle-aged man and a young woman. Minister Calicitra's skin was extremely white, but that middle-aged man was even whiter like snow. He looked like he was sick. However, considering where he was standing, he couldn't possibly be ill. The young woman was even whiter, but still extremely beautiful. She was much better looking than the man. Minister Abdullah. Wang Zhuo stood up and greeted the newcomers politely. He nodded and smiled at Minister Abdullah, and the young woman next to him, and then quickly looked away. Wang Zhuo knew that with women, if you didn't look at them, they thought you were impolite, and if you looked at them a bit too long, then they thought you wanted to sleep with them. Therefore, the best way was to try and not overdo things. Uptala, you're here too. Minister Kalasutra replied with a smile. They were both leaders in hell. Minister Uptala controlled Uptala hell. They were both high officials of the Tinyama courts. I've heard that many things were going to happen, said Minister Uptala smiling and sitting down next to them. Qinyao, my girl, you're here. I came at the right time. Let's watch together, proposed Minister Kalasutra smiling and pointing at one of the battle stages. It was Lin Feng's battle stage. That little boy is quite strong. Nobody can defeat him. He's won 62 battles already, and he hasn't rested at all. Uptala, you think he will make 100 times? Let's watch and see, replied Minister Uptala. He continued watching as Lin Feng continued winning. 100 victories won't be a problem for him, Uptala said to Minister Kalasutra. What if he doesn't? Replied Minister Kalasutra sharply. Minister Uptala glanced at Qinyao. He perfectly understood what Minister Kalasutra meant. The other also thought Lin Feng could win 100 times, but he wouldn't let him. If he doesn't, I'll offer Qinyao a blue Uptala lotus, replied Minister Uptala with a smile. But what if he does win 100 times? Uptala, protested Minister Kalasutra. Since Minister Uptala said he'd offer a blue Uptala lotus to Qinyao, he couldn't miss this opportunity. If he doesn't, I'll offer some hellfire to your daughter, countered Minister Kalasutra swiftly. Chapter 1852. Blade Technique et Sword Technique. Minister Uptala controlled Uptala hell. Blue Uptala lotuses represented his strength, and were at the origin of the 10,000 things of creation. Hellfire represented Minister Kalasutra's strength. That fire was destructive and powerful. The two things were precious items for Hell Emperors. If they didn't take them out even though they had said so, it would be a humiliation. How great! I will pay attention to the battles even more then, exclaimed Wang Zhuo, when he heard the two ministers make a bet. He was surprised, but he was Great Emperor Song's direct descendant, and he had seen many things in his life. He said that to make the two ministers calm down in a friendly manner. When people around the pavilions heard them, they were startled too. There were tensions between the two ministers. They were arguing indirectly. Of course, they were ministers under Great Emperor Song. At their cultivation levels they couldn't fight for real, so they bet on Lin Feng's results. Both Minister Uptala's blue Uptala lotus and Minister Kalasutra's hellfire were precious items. For Hell Emperors, those things were priceless and very useful. For the two ministers, they weren't as priceless, and they didn't need them. Minister Uptala, you have faith in that young man, smiled Minister Kalasutra. Minister Uptala stretched out his slender white hand and smiled. Minister Kalasutra, if you didn't think he could get 100 victories, you wouldn't have asked me anything. He perfectly understood that when Minister Kalasutra had asked him that question, he already had an answer himself. Minister Kalasutra also thought Lin Feng could win, but now the circumstances were different. That was a moment before. Now, I don't think he can win anymore. Minister Kalasutra smiled. He looked at Wang Zhuo. Wang Zhuo, what do you think of that lad? Wang Zhuo looked at Minister Kalasutra. His expression didn't change as he replied calmly. We'll see who gets onto the battle stage. Wang Zhuo glanced at Qinyao. Minister Kalasutra understood what Wang Zhuo meant. When Minister Kalasutra heard Wang Zhuo, he smiled. This young man didn't want to offend anyone, so he answered politely. Lin Feng didn't know that the people in the bleachers were looking at him. He didn't know about the minister's bet either. He had already won 72 battles. For him, fighting at the level of low-level Hell Emperors, winning 100 times wasn't difficult. Even in the great Imperial Song City, it wasn't easy to find a low-level Hell Emperor who was as strong as Ji Wuyo. Ji Wuyo's fighting abilities had been powerful. It was rare for low-level emperors to be that strong. Usually people who were that strong had a special body. Lin Feng was convinced that there were powerfully strong cultivators in this place, but they weren't seen every day. Even if there were some, they also had to get onto the battle stage. Besides, even if some people stronger than Wuxia wanted to battle against him, so what? He had won more than 70 battles, and he wasn't tired. He had just imitated He Lao's attack so he could practice. Everything was going perfect. Lin Feng continued winning. More and more people were watching him. A few strong cultivators fought against him. They wanted to defeat him and benefit from his victories. But Lin Feng continued defeating them as quickly as he had beaten He Lao. Lin Feng had now won 81 battles. More and more people were watching him, including those young people in the pavilions. Some of them smiled each time Lin Feng attacked. That guy has won 82 battles, and he hasn't rested yet. Do you know who he is? Usually people rest every 10 battles, but he hasn't. He wants to draw people's attention and join the army in a high position. After all, showing how strong you were was very important in the world of cultivation. The most impressive thing is that he has won more than 80 battles, and it seems normal for him. He looks calm and relaxed, and hasn't used his full strength at all. He doesn't look tired at all. Everybody was staring at Lin Feng and talking. Surprisingly, nobody went up onto the battle stage to fight against him for a while. Lin Feng looked too powerful, and they didn't want to overdo it. If Lin Feng used even more brutal attacks, maybe he would be even scarier. Qing, how strong do you think that guy is? Asked Minister Uptala to the beautiful young white woman next to him. I don't know, answered Qing, shaking her head. She couldn't see how strong Lin Feng was. He has won more than 80 battles, and he hasn't used his full strength at all. He will definitely win 100 times, declared Minister Uptala. He sounded nice and friendly. However, he sounded firm too, so people wouldn't forget his words. When Minister Kalasutra heard Minister Uptala, he looked at the battle stage. He knew that Lin Feng was extremely strong, but Lin Feng couldn't win 100 battles. There are many strong cultivators. That young man has already amazed everyone with his 81 victories. That's rare. If someone manages to defeat him, they will be rewarded. Minister Kalasutra suddenly spoke up loudly. The crowd looked at him strangely. A reward for defeating Lin Feng? Because of that, everyone looked at Lin Feng. If they defeated him, they'd be rewarded, but the government would also notice them. At that moment, a silhouette jumped onto the battle stage. He was wearing white clothes and looked extremely aggressive. His expression was as sharp as a blade. That's Han Feng. His blade skills are powerful. When he uses his 7 strikes attack, people always die. Finally, someone who's strong, thought the crowd after they recognized the cultivator, surprised he had joined in. Han Feng's 7 strikes blade technique always kills people. A year ago, he also came onto the battle stage. He won 85 times, but he was exhausted and had to rest. Prince Mai had jumped onto the battle stage then too. Now a year has passed. He must have become much stronger. Everybody was commenting. Han Feng had practiced cultivation really hard during the past year. Han Feng took out a black blade, shaped like a crescent moon. It wasn't like a sword, that blade cut people. Han Feng's blade technique was about killing as fast as possible. Han Feng cut the air with his blade, not speaking any nonsense. His black blade contained powerfully aggressive energies. He charged Lin Feng with an indomitable will. Lin Feng stared at the blade. It was a death hell blade, and contained some wind and earth energies. Han Feng looked extremely aggressive, and was also extremely fast. His 7 strikes laceration technique was powerful, aggressive, fearless, and heroic. His blade could kill people in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng sensed the energies surrounding him. How aggressive, brutal, and violent. Lin Feng's eyes became pitch black. He started using the Celestial Evolution Holy Scriptures to imitate his opponent's technique. He could suddenly clearly see how powerful the blade was. Such an aggressive blade technique could possibly kill medium-level emperors. However, because he was extremely aggressive, he probably had a weakness in his defense. He didn't seem to pay attention to defense. Few people could actually counterattack after such a powerful blade attack. Usually the first strike was enough. The first strike hadn't even reached Lin Feng before the second blade had already appeared. It was as if blades were falling from the sky like shooting stars, all of them dazzling. Few people could fight against him. His blade attacks could easily cut people apart. Even Minister Kalasutra was amazed and said, "What an incredible blade technique! If he moved a little bit faster, then his technique would be even more powerful." Minister Kalasutra was clearly helping out Han Feng. As expected, Han Feng heard Minister Kalasutra and immediately released more wind cosmic energy. His attack became even sharper. However, there were exceptions. As Han Feng's blade attack moved forwards, a kind of sword strength descended from the sky. It was like a million death swords were falling from the sky. He could sense the sharp energies. He looked at Lin Feng and saw two eyes, the eyes of the 9 netherworlds. His willpower started shaking. He had solely focused on his own attack. He hadn't expected that Lin Feng would use such an attack against him. Now it was a bit complicated to react. Even if his attack was exceptional, if his opponents killed him before he had time to deploy them, then what was the point? Therefore, Han Feng retreated, having a bad premonition. His blade energies suddenly disappeared. Han Feng raised his head, as drops of sweat appeared on his forehead. Everybody's eyes were wide open. They didn't understand why the blade couldn't move towards Lin Feng, and why Han Feng was withdrawing. Actually, Han Feng didn't only move backwards, he suddenly turned around and jumped off the stage. He declared, "I lost." He had lost, so staying on the battle stage was useless. Chapter 1853. Last battle. The Nihility sword scriptures allowed a cultivator to learn more about sword intent. The sword meaning could advance to void, nihilism. Lin Feng hadn't studied the Nihility sword scriptures for very long, so he didn't control the sword techniques of the scriptures that well. With his Nihility sword he couldn't kill Han Feng. However, Han Feng was smart and understood that Lin Feng's Nihility sword was more powerful than his 7 blades laceration technique. His attack was perfect, but it wasn't enough against Lin Feng. Everybody was staring at Lin Feng. They knew Lin Feng could win before the battle had started, but they hadn't thought Han Feng would surrender. They didn't even know what had happened. Lin Feng hadn't even moved. Han Feng had just retreated and surrendered outright. They knew that Han Feng couldn't possibly have let Lin Feng win on purpose. At their cultivation level, nobody did that. Only children or puerile people did such things. Lin Feng had probably used a secret technique, and Han Feng had given up. 82 victories. He's getting closer and closer to 100 victories, thought the crowd watching Lin Feng. Minister Uptala smiled gently and said, "I sense some sword energy. That boy hasn't shown us all he can do. No matter who gets on the battle stage, I don't think anyone can win." Of course, Minister Uptala was talking loudly enough for Minister Kalasutra to hear. Minister Kalasutra smiled back. What if Qing Qing fought against him? "I don't know," replied Minister Uptala cheerfully. "She could win or lose." He smiled at Qin Yao and asked, "Qin Yao, you think you can definitely defeat him?" "Of course," Qin Yao replied confidently. Minister Uptala just looked away. Qin Yao was definitely going to fight. Minister Kalasutra had bet with him, so Qin Yao had to use her full strength against Lin Feng. Minister Uptala looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Even fewer people wanted to fight against him. At that moment, Minister Kalasutra openly said, 82 victories. Isn't there any low-level Hell Emperor in the great Imperial Song City who can defeat this young man? Many people's eyes twinkled. Lin Feng was incredibly strong. Defeating Lin Feng wasn't about the 100 victories anymore. It was even more meaningful. When Minister Uptala heard Minister Kalasutra, he looked at Lin Feng and said, "Young man, if you get 100 victories, I'll give you a blue Uptala lotus." Blue Uptala lotus. The crowd all turned to look in astonishment. If Lin Feng wins 100 times, Minister Uptala will give him a blue Uptala lotus. What's wrong with the ministers? Why are they competing like that? The blue Uptala lotus contains the strength of the 10,000 things of creation. And now he's saying he's willing to give one to that guy? The audience was amazed. Lin Feng naturally heard everything. He raised his head and looked at Minister Uptala in surprise. Minister Kalasutra wanted people to defeat him, and Minister Uptala wanted him to win. They didn't seem to be friends. "Thank you very much, Minister." Lin Feng smiled. He didn't understand these people's goals, but for him, There were only advantages. And Minister was paying attention to him. That was a good thing. He was getting closer to his goal. He wanted to attract the attention of high officials. And those ministers were definitely high officials. They were just under Great Emperor Song in the hierarchy. No need. If you win, I will obtain Minister Kalasutra's hellfire. It's a great thing for me too, laughed Minister Uptala. When the crowd heard that, they understood. Minister Uptala and Minister Kalasutra had bet on Lin Feng's battles. And Minister Uptala thought Lin Feng was going to get 100 victories, while Minister Kalasutra thought Lin Feng wasn't. The other people in the bleachers already knew that the ministers had bet. Many of them wished they were Lin Feng at that moment. After that, someone else went up onto the battle stage. That person was extremely strong, but far from being as strong as Han Feng. That cultivator didn't mind though. He wanted to fight against Lin Feng to practice. He knew he couldn't win. Besides, it was worth trying. If he were lucky, he might win. Of course he lost, and Lin Feng now had 83 victories. After that, more people fought against Lin Feng, some stronger, some weaker. If those people had chosen another battle stage, they could have won 50 battles at least. All in all, nobody could pose a threat to Lin Feng. Lin Feng quickly reached 97 victories. 3 more battles, thought the crowd. Lin Feng was 3 victories away from success. If he won 100 battles, he would be able to join the army and obtain Minister Uptala's blue Uptala lotus. Everybody watched the 2 ministers. They looked indifferent. It was impossible to know what they were thinking. Prince of the 6 Abysses? At that moment, the crowd saw a silhouette near the battle stage. They frowned. It was the Prince of the 6 Abysses. Did he want to fight against this guy? Even though the Prince of the 6 Abysses is a low-level Hell Emperor, he's very famous. He has killed many medium-level emperors. He's very strong, and as famous as Prince Mai. His 6 Hell spell is powerful. He can make people fall into the abysses of hell, thought the crowd when they saw the Prince of the 6 Abysses. They looked excited. Since the Prince of the 6 Abysses was there, it meant he wanted to fight against Lin Feng. I came to exchange views on cultivation with you, said someone at that moment. The person was wearing white clothes and moved towards Lin Feng like lightning. People couldn't see the silhouette clearly. What a fast sword! How powerful! Thought the crowd staring at the battle stage. Lin Feng sensed a powerful sword energy surround him. His eyes glittered. This person's speed was impressive. His speed cosmic energies made his sword even faster. He wanted to kill his opponents as quickly as possible. Lin Feng waved his hands, and an ocean of purple energies appeared. It was his purple lake tank. It rose to the skies. The sword lights shot through the air. However, at that moment, Lin Feng stretched his hand out, and a cage appeared. Break! Shouted his opponent, releasing sword intent. Lin Feng released wind cosmic energies and Kulpa strength, which descended from the sky. Death Kulpa strength surrounded the opponent's sword intent, destroyed it, and then surrounded him. Kulpa, swore Lin Feng. His Kulpa strength rose to the skies, and the air crackled. His opponent gave out a horrible shriek as Lin Feng landed and punched him. There was a sound of shattering bones, and the man was smashed away and crashed onto the battle stage. Some of his limbs bent in impossible ways. You're humiliating yourself, Lin Feng said mockingly. His opponent was stunned, but he had started the fight. He had immediately attacked Lin Feng, even though he hadn't even landed on the battle stage. So Lin Feng decided to humiliate him back. 98. 2 more battles and Lin Feng would get 100 victories. However, the Prince of the 6 Abysses didn't seem to be willing to fight. The crowd was surprised when they saw that. He wants to wait to be the last one, thought the many people watching the Prince of the 6 Abysses. He had that thought indeed. Lin Feng easily defeated the next opponent and had 99 victories. It was the battle. A silhouette rose up in the air. It was the Prince of the 6 Abysses, preparing to challenge Lin Feng for the final battle. There! However, at that moment, the crowd saw a silhouette behind Lin Feng, a beautiful young woman. The crowd was stunned. It was Minister Kalasutra's daughter Qin Yao. She also wants to fight against him, thought the amazed audience. They hadn't thought that Minister Kalasutra's daughter would want to fight too. Go down. Qin Yao said to the Prince of the Six Abysses. The Prince of the Six Abysses frowned and looked at her icily. "It's my battle," said the Prince of the Six Abysses. "We can only have one battle at a time on the battle stage," said Qin Yao, smiling indifferently. Then suddenly, she turned into a light beam and moved towards the Prince of the Six Abysses. She didn't fight against Lin Feng, she fought against him. Fire! The crowd saw an ocean of black flames appear under the Prince of the Six Abysses' feet. He looked ferocious. Hellfire! The Prince of the Six Abysses' expression changed drastically. He did some hand seals and 6 vortexes appeared around him, making him look like a god of hell. Burn! Under Qin Yao's feet, another powerful flame appeared and moved towards the 6 vortexes. Chapter 1854. Powerful battle. Qin Yao's hellfire is powerful and destructive, thought the crowd. The Prince of the Six Abysses tried to force Qin Yao into the 6 abysses. She shouted furiously and condensed her energies. Flames sealed the area around the Prince of the Six Abysses. The Prince of the Six Abysses' 6 hells are going to burn and break apart, thought the astonished crowd. The Prince of the Six Abysses waved his hands, and purple lights surrounded Qin Yao. "Destroy!" shouted Qin Yao. She condensed flames, and a powerful hellfire appeared in her hand. The Prince of the Six Abysses frowned and looked nervous. He struck out with both fists to counterattack. However, at that moment, Qin Yao disappeared and turned into a raging fireball. Fire exploded in every direction, and flames filled the stage. It looked like hell. The crowd heard someone groan, and then they saw the Prince of the Six Abysses moving back out of the flames. He was all burnt. How strong! No wonder she's Minister Kalasutra's daughter. They had only fought for a few seconds, but it was incredible nonetheless. The Prince of the Six Abysses' strength was astonishing, but he had still lost against Qin Yao. "Get down now," ordered Qin Yao, smiling indifferently. Her smile was the picture of self-confidence. She had the right to fight against Lin Feng. "We'll exchange views on cultivation again if we have the opportunity, Princess Qin Yao," replied the Prince of the Six Abysses, before turning around and leaving the battle stage. The princess would fight against Lin Feng. In the ancient pavilion, the geniuses there had all won 100 battles. However, when they saw how strong Qin Yao was, they were also surprised. She was a minister's daughter and had inherited great powers. A cultivator's bloodline obviously had a great influence on their cultivation. In the bleachers, Minister Kalasutra smiled indifferently. When he saw how strong his daughter was, he felt relieved. The Prince of the Six Abysses was a public figure, but his daughter Qin Yao had still defeated him quickly. Qin Yao was exceptionally strong. Among the low-level emperors, there weren't many people who could defeat her. Probably the only ones who could compete with her were the other ministers' children. Ministers usually were doting parents. Princess Qin Yao is incredibly strong. Getting 100 victories won't be easy for that guy, observed Wang Zhua, smiling politely. He meant something implicitly. Minister Kalasutra just smiled. 100 victories would be really difficult for Lin Feng now. Minister Kalasutra looked at Minister Uptala and said, "Brother Uptala, get ready to offer my daughter Qin Yao your lotus." "I hope the little one will be able to get it," answered Minister Uptala indifferently. He had promised Lin Feng that if he won, he'd obtain a blue Uptala lotus. If Lin Feng lost, Minister Uptala would have to give Qin Yao a blue Uptala lotus, and his own daughter Qing wouldn't be able to obtain the hellfire. Everybody was watching Lin Feng at that moment. Lin Feng's strength was extraordinary. Amongst low-level hell emperors, he was indeed extremely strong. He had won 99 battles, and hadn't had a rest at all. However, he didn't look like he needed one. How different would the 100th battle be? Especially now that he was going to fight against Qin Yao, after she had defeated the Prince of the Six Abysses? The crowd didn't dare predict the result of the fight. After all, the Prince of the Six Abysses was a powerful cultivator, and Qin Yao had defeated him, which meant she was even stronger. The Prince of the Six Abysses had looked so weak when facing her. Therefore, Lin Feng would probably struggle to win 100th time. People were used to seeing incredible battles with extremely strong geniuses. Many incredible cultivators liked fighting against someone once they had reached 99 victories. It was a dazzling way to win. If she managed to defeat Lin Feng, whom nobody else managed to defeat, then everybody would admire her. This guy has won 99 battles, but now he's probably going to lose since Qin Yao is much stronger and has hellfire, thought some people. Qin Yao turned around and looked at Lin Feng. She smiled thinly and sat down in the flames. She looked very beautiful in the flames but scary too. I'm sorry. You won 99 battles and that's a great achievement, but now it's going to be difficult to win the last one, smiled Qin Yao. However, she didn't sound like she was really sorry. She just sounded polite. Even ministers' daughters didn't rely on their parents, they relied on themselves. Great Emperor Song loved fighting, so young people also started from there. In the past, Qin Yao was only famous in Kalasutra Hell. The first time she had fought in the great imperial Song city, it hadn't been to draw people's attention, but she had anyway. Her purpose was to become strong. Fighting was inevitable and pleasant, so even without the ministers there, people fought anyway. Lin Feng looked back at Qin Yao calmly. He knew she was self-confident, but she had what it took to be confident. She was Minister Kalasutra's daughter. She had inherited his powerful blood. Such people were rare. Of course, what Qin Yao didn't know was that Lin Feng was also self-confident, even more than she. Princess, you're quite strong. However, nobody can prevent me from winning 100 times, replied Lin Feng calmly, yet aggressively. Nobody could prevent him from winning 100 times, including Minister Kalasutra's daughter. All right, we'll see something now. When Minister Uptala heard Lin Feng, he laughed wholeheartedly. This battle was going to be interesting. Even if Lin Feng lost, he'd be happy to give him a blue Uptala lotus. I respect you and truly believe you're extremely strong, so I will be merciless. Be careful. It could be dangerous, smiled Qin Yao, nodding at Lin Feng. Lin Feng replied, Princess, you're too polite. Please attack. Flames suddenly emerged from Qin Yao's body. It looked like hell had come to the battle stage, covering it in black flames. The temperature shot up, and the crackling and snapping of flames filled the air. The powerful fire surrounded Qin Yao's body, and she disappeared within it. At that moment, some flames started moving and raced towards Lin Feng. He was startled, as these flames could easily destroy a medium-level emperor. His physical body had the strength of a medium-level emperor, but still, that fire was dangerous. After that, a third hellfire appeared and rose to the skies. The whole battle stage was surrounded by hellfire. The crowd was certain Lin Feng was going to lose. A vortex of hellfire surrounded Lin Feng and spun around. Qin Yao's powers are similar to Ho Qing Lin's reincarnation strength. If he came here to practice cultivation for a while, he'd definitely benefit from it, thought Lin Feng. The temperature continued increasing, and Lin Feng began to feel hot. The three flames became gigantic and descended from the sky towards Lin Feng. Hell was falling on him. Qin Yao's silhouette appeared again, and she struck out in Lin Feng's direction. Lin Feng couldn't escape, and the fires could destroy him. How powerful, thought Lin Feng. His heart started racing, and he finally moved. He flashed away. Dazzling lights appeared all around as he sealed the atmosphere around him. The fire couldn't affect him anymore. He then released immortal strength, looking like a god. His eyes turned pitch black as he struck out using earth punches, trying to destroy one of the flames. The ground was shaking violently. Lin Feng then used his setting sun meteorite to attack the second fire. Sword lights cut the air and sliced it apart. He waved his hand, and a destructive deployment strength manifested as his purple tank reappeared. It was like an ocean and moved towards the third flame. Lin Feng released Devamarakalpa strength and physical strength to protect himself as he struck out towards Qin Yao. The whole atmosphere was filled with destructive energies. Black flames appeared in Qin Yao's eyes. She wanted to destroy Lin Feng's will, but Lin Feng's demonic will was too powerful. He was absolutely unaffected. She sensed an endless amount of invisible sharp sword energies surround her. And immediately after, a wall of Devamarakalpa punches moved towards her and collided with her fist. Black lights exploded and obscured everything. Qin Yao used hell strength, a destructive kind of power. However, at that moment, she sensed an even more destructive strength. Something blackish red splashed. It was her blood. Her mouth was bleeding, and she had the sensation that all the bones of her arm were broken. Chapter 1855. A good harvest. The destructive strength hadn't dispersed yet. The crowd was staring at the battle stage in astonishment. Qin Yao's strength was incredible. She had used amazing strength to fight against Lin Feng. The very sky had turned into hell. At the same time, she had used 3 hellfires to surround Lin Feng. Lin Feng was too strong though. They didn't really understand how Lin Feng had attacked, but it had worked. Lin Feng had sealed the atmosphere with deployment strength, and at the same time, he had released immortal energies and will to punch her. He had also attacked the first hellfire with immortal, death, lightning, and earth cosmic energies. 4 kinds of cosmic energies. The second fire was destroyed by his setting sun meteorite, which contained fire, earth, wind, and death cosmic energies, as well as sword strength coupled with fire and wind cosmic energies. That was a total of 6. The third fire was destroyed by a gigantic purple tank with an incredible destructive strength, which also contained many sorts of cosmic energies. In the end, Qin Yao and Lin Feng's fists had collided, but his punch was far more powerful, and he blew her away. She even coughed up blood. Lin Feng was truly strong. His Devamara Kulpa strength and his powerful physical strength were amazing. When the qi dispersed, the crowd saw Lin Feng still standing there, his black hair fluttering in the wind. He was motionless. Nobody can prevent me from winning 100 times. The crowd still remembered Lin Feng's statement as he stood there proudly. Even Princess Qin Yao, the daughter of an minister, hadn't managed to defeat him. At that moment, Qin Yao was still in the air, staring unhappily at Lin Feng with her beautiful eyes. She had lost, and felt a bit humiliated. She didn't feel as confident as before. "You lost," said Lin Feng helpfully. "You lost, so please go back." "The battle is not over," said Qin Yao. She didn't smile anymore. She released even more flames. "The battle is already over. If you insist and want to continue fighting, I can't guarantee it'll be safe for you," said Lin Feng calmly. The crowd was astonished. Was Lin Feng threatening her? Lin Feng actually meant that he had been merciful. He had controlled himself. Otherwise, Qin Yao wouldn't have looked like a human being anymore. "The young will be redoubtable in the years to come," said Minister Uptala, smiling broadly. Lin Feng was a passionate cultivator, and he could see that. If someone raised that young boy correctly, he'd become a great emperor someday. He was very talented. He would definitely be able to become a minister someday, and be at the head of an army. When Qin Yao heard Lin Feng, she stared at him icily. Lin Feng surprisingly dared say he had been merciful? She had used her full strength, Lin Feng hadn't? She continued releasing more and more energies, but at that moment someone intervened. "Qin Yao, that's enough." It was her father, Minister Kalasutra. Qin Yao slowly turned around and looked back at him. "All right, come back," said Minister Kalasutra with a nod. Qin Yao remained silent for a few seconds, but when she saw her father's expression, she recalled her qi and nodded obediently before heading back to him. Her arms still felt extremely sore. There are many extremely strong cultivators here on the battle stages. "Someday, when you join the government, you'll be a dazzling cultivator," smiled Minister Kalasutra. Even though Lin Feng had defeated his daughter, he wasn't angry. After all, Lin Feng and Qin Yao had battled according to the rules on the official battle stage of the city. Qin Yao had even provoked Lin Feng. Even though he had a high social status, he had no reason to be angry at Lin Feng. Besides, he was a minister, and he was a celestial emperor in hell. He had to control himself. Even though Lin Feng had injured Qin Yao, the injuries weren't too bad. Lin Feng had taught her a good lesson. Surprisingly, an unknown young man was so strong. Of course, Minister Kalasutra was still a bit annoyed because he lost face to Minister Uptala. "Qing, this hellfire is a gift to you from Uncle Kalasutra," said Minister Kalasutra to Qing while transmitting hellfire to her with a gesture. However, it didn't explode. It just moved slowly towards her. The ministers had made a bet, so Qing didn't refuse the hellfire. She smiled thinly and nodded to accept it. Qing looked at the fire in her hand and smiled at her father. Unfortunately, I am not a fire cultivator. Otherwise, that hellfire would make me much stronger. Even if you're not a fire cultivator, you can transform it and use it for your own interest, smiled Minister Abdullah. He stretched his hand out, and the strength of the 10,000 things of creation appeared as a blue Abdullah lotus manifested. Minister Abdullah looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Young man, this for you. I promised it. You won 100 battles, please take it. The blue Abdullah lotus floated towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stretched his hand out and grabbed the lotus, feeling its mysterious strength. It contained the strength of the 10,000 things of creation. Thank you very much for your great gift, Minister, smiled Lin Feng, bowing deeply. Lin Feng was very grateful. This blue Abdullah lotus might be very useful for him. I see that you controlled fire cosmic energies, and your death cosmic energies are powerful. This hellfire can be very useful for you too, so I'm giving it to you. Qing Qing smiled softly, sounding very sweet. She threw hellfire at Lin Feng. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng was really lucky. He had obtained the blue Abdullah lotus and the hellfire. However, he deserved it too. If he hadn't been strong, he wouldn't have won 100 times, and he wouldn't have obtained anything. Princess, it's a gift you received. I feel like I'm stealing something from you, replied Lin Feng. Qing Qing had obtained the hellfire from Minister Kalasutra, and now she was giving it to him. He was touched. I don't need that fire. You will become much stronger quickly with it. Uncle Kalasutra won't be mad at me, said Qing Qing smiled back at him. As expected, Minister Kalasutra said, Lin Feng, Qing Qing is willing to give it to you, just take it. Thank you, my lady, said Lin Feng happily and politely. He had received the blue Abdullah lotus and hellfire. At that moment, a silhouette rose up into the air and landed on the battle stage. The official was bearing medal. It had song written on it. He presented it to Lin Feng and said solemnly, You won 100 times, this is your medal. You can join the government and become a member of the army now. Thank you, sir, answered Lin Feng, accepting the medal of the great imperial Song City. Put your godly awareness into it, said the official. The owners of the medals put their godly awareness into them so that after their death, people couldn't counterfeit them or use them. If Lin Feng died, the medal would just break apart. Lin Feng did what he was told, and the person said, Lin Feng, you have won 100 battles. Now you can also join those who have accomplished the same as you. If you defeat 9 other winners, you will gain privileges. Would you like to benefit from that program? I do want to participate, agreed Lin Feng, nodding without hesitation. This was another opportunity. He couldn't let it slip past him. All right, since you do, please join them in the pavilions and take a rest. When all the battles are over, you can start fighting again, smiled the official. Lin Feng looked at the cultivators in the pavilions, understanding that those people had also won 100 battles. He hadn't known that before. He headed over to a pavilion. Chapter 1856. Incredible battle. Lin Feng went to the pavilion beneath the 2 ministers. It was the best one to watch battles. However, because the 2 ministers were there, nobody else dared go there. However, Lin Feng did. When entering the pavilion, Lin Feng heard someone groan coldly. He turned around and saw Qin Yao. She looked angry as Minister Kalasutra healed her injuries. Lin Feng looked at Qin Yao and smiled. I'm sorry, I was a bit too rough. You said things could have gotten worse if we had continued fighting. Did you mean you were merciful? Said Qin Yao, rolling her eyes and grinding her teeth. Lin Feng looked embarrassed but kept smiling. The battle was over. He wanted to be nice to her, especially since her father was a powerful man. Even though Qin Yao was angry, she didn't harbor any evil intentions. Qin Yao, how can you be so impolite? Even though you lost, you have to be polite and practice cultivation harder, chided Minister Kalasutra. I know. Qin Yao nodded. Then, she looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, We'll fight again if we have the opportunity. As you wish, princess. I am willing to spend time with you, said Lin Feng, smiling thinly. Then, he looked at Minister Abdullah and his daughter, and smiled at them both. Minister Abdullah smiled back at him, but didn't say anything. Lin Feng looked back at the battle stages. Zhang Heng was still fighting. He had already won 62 battles, a rare achievement. He had come to win 100 battles. He hadn't thought Lin Feng, a new friend, would win that fast and in such a dazzling way. Apart from Zhang Heng, another extremely strong man was fighting. He had also been fighting for longer than Lin Feng. He was on the medium-level Hell Emperor's battle stage, and immediately drew Lin Feng's attention. He was blind and practiced sword cultivation. Even though he was blind, his swordsmanship was amazing. He was not only fast, he was precise too. It was difficult to see where the sword attacks came from when he attacked. He was blind, but when fighting against him, it was like his opponents were the blind ones. He was a true sword assassin, and his name was Jian Mang. Jian Mang had gotten onto the battle stage at the same time as He Lao. However, he hadn't won 100 battles yet, only 67 battles. He wasn't slow, he was a sword cultivator. He wasn't any slower than Lin Feng. He quickly won battles, so why was he still on the battle stage? It was because Jian Mang's sword attacks were cruel. After stabbing people, he slowly made them suffer, and pierced their eyes with his sword energies to make them go blind. Such cruel people were rare. Most people on the battle stages were merciful. People could accept losing a battle, but they were unwilling to go blind if they lost. Therefore, cruel people weren't numerous. Jian Mang was extremely strong, but because he was cruel, each time after his battles, people took a long time to go onto his battle stage because they were afraid. At that moment, another horrible shriek spread in the air. Jian Mang had immediately pierced one of that person's eyes. He's fast, precise, and cruel, thought Lin Feng. Even though he was cruel, he was also very strong. Fighting against him was definitely worth it. Lin Feng watched Jian Mang battle. After a few battles, he understood that Jian Mang's sword was extremely quick at the beginning. Then its trajectory kept changing unpredictably and resulted in an unexpected winning move. His sword attacks were strange. Finding his weakness was very difficult, as his sword attacks were fast and unpredictable. Besides, each time people got close to that sword chi, they almost suffocated. And unfortunately, each time they lost, Jian Mang blinded them. Lin Feng also practiced sword cultivation. He used a straightforward path, using absolute power to defeat his enemies. But Jian Mang relied on his techniques and accuracy. Yet the results were the same, absolute terror. Jian Mang is going to get 100 victories. Not many people can compete with him. So many people seem to be getting 100 victories today, thought the audience. Wang Zhuo's eyes glittered sharply as he watched Jian Mang. Wang Zhuo, can you win against him? Minister Kalasutra asked Wang Zhuo. Wang Zhuo was a medium-level Hell Emperor like Jian Mang. Besides, he had already dazzled on the battle stage in the past. When facing an incredible cultivator, no matter how insane you are, you can't win, replied Wang Zhuo indifferently. Minister Kalasutra smiled and said, unfortunately, you have already won 100 victories in the past, so you can't go back onto the battle stage. Otherwise, I would have loved to see you defeat him. Time passed slowly. Zhang Heng had 83 victories and then unfortunately, he lost against a very strong cultivator. He had failed after coming so close to success. But Zhang Heng wasn't angry. At the beginning, he didn't intend to finish the battles at once, he wanted to rest. But then he had seen Lin Feng win all his battles in a row, and had continued. Now he had lost, but at least he had learned something. Zhang Heng looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng, you've already won 100 battles. You will become a dazzling cultivator. I'm not staying here. I'll come back another day and try again. And then I'll also come to town to see you, called out Zhang Heng. All right, I hope you'll win 100 battles soon. Lin Feng smiled back at Zhang Heng, watching him turn around and depart. After that, no other low-level emperor managed to win 100 times. Among the medium-level Hell Emperors, Jian Mang succeeded. Just like Lin Feng, he had finished all his battles without resting once. At that moment, an official landed on the battle stage and announced to the crow, after this fight, please stop the battles. Many low-level Hell Emperors and medium-level Hell Emperors have won 100 battles today. There will be battles between them. Everybody's eyes glittered with expectation. The winners were all geniuses. The battles between them were going to be powerful. They could definitely wait to see them. As expected, after the last battle, people stopped fighting. A strong cultivator in the air pointed to two battle stages. One was the battle stage on which Lin Feng had fought, and the other one was the one on which Jian Meng had fought. Since two people won 100 victories on these battle stages today, we can continue on them. People in the pavilion stood up and glanced at one another. Qin Yao was unhappy. She looked at Lin Feng angrily. She should have been on that battle stage, but Lin Feng had defeated her. Competitors landed on the two battle stages one after another. There were quite a few of them. For the medium-level Hell Emperors, there were 11 people including Jian Meng. For the low-level Hell Emperors, there were 13 people including Lin Feng. If you can defeat 9 people, then you will obtain privileges. At that moment, everybody looked around. Among the low-level Hell Emperors, Lin Feng can definitely win. The Prince of the Six Abysses is strong, but Qin Yao defeated him. And she is very strong, but Lin Feng defeated her. Even though those other people have won 100 battles, it will still be difficult for them to defeat Lin Feng. He can definitely obtain privileges, said someone. In the bleachers, many people were expressing their opinion. Minister Uptala smiled calmly and said, Lin Feng became famous today. I am convinced he will defeat 9 people. The official on the battle stage went on. You know the rules. Lin Feng can start the battles and challenge 9 people. If he loses, he has to leave the battle stage, and the winner can continue challenging 8 other people. On the low-level Hell Emperor's battle stage, there were 13 people, and Lin Feng was going to start. Each cultivator could also lose 3 times. After 3 losses, they were eliminated because there weren't enough fighters to lose more than 3 times and win 9 times. That way the rules were fair. How would the battles look like? All those young people were amazing. Chapter 1857. 1 against 6 on the other battle stage. Jian Meng was the first one to start the battles. On the low-level Hell Emperor's battle stage, Lin Feng was the first one. He had to win against 9 people. Being the first one had an advantage. They could avoid people who they thought were too strong, and start with weaker ones if they knew them. 9 battles won't be difficult for that young man, said Minister Calisutra calmly. Qin Yao nodded and agreed. Of course. He's so strong. He'll definitely obtain privileges. Lin Feng had defeated her. If she said Lin Feng couldn't win 9 times, it would mean that she wouldn't be able to. But those 12 people are also incredible people. They've also won 100 battles. They're geniuses. I can't wait to see how he'll defeat them, said Minister Calisutra with an expectant smile. Lin Feng glanced at the people he had to challenge. He knew nobody. All those people are low-level emperors, and they've all won 100 battles. Those 12 people are all strong cultivators. Maybe they're as strong as the students of Champion University, who are in the top 20. I'm not going to fight against all of them at the same time. Anyway, thought Lin Feng. He pointed at one of them and said, Your Excellency, please come and fight. Jin Pan Guan. The crowd looked at the person Lin Feng had chosen. He was wearing fine clothes, and was fat with a round face. Even though he couldn't be compared with He Lao, he really looked too fat to move. He was a gold cultivator, and his gold cosmic energies were powerful. He cut people apart with gold energies. He was unhappy that Lin Feng had challenged him. After all, he had seen how strong Lin Feng was. Everybody had. Being the first one to lose would be annoying. And he could lose only 3 times. Against Lin Feng, he had little chance to win, so he wouldn't have many tries. The two faced each other, as the others moved to the edge of the stage. Golden lights cut the air and Jin Pan Guan suddenly disappeared. Even though he was fat, it didn't have any impact on his speed. Lin Feng had the sensation that a rain of gold had started, and each drop of gold was as sharp as a blade. Whistling sounds filled his ears. The lights moved towards Lin Feng. At the same time, a golden pencil appeared in Jin Pan Guan's hand. His pencil streaked across the sky, containing a powerful deadly strength. Lin Feng had the impression he was going to be impaled. That guy's golden pencil is like a sword. It's sharp and contains gold and empty space cosmic energies. Lin Feng waved his hand, and 9 ancient cauldrons appeared. 9 cauldron celestial attack, said Lin Feng, waving his hand as the cauldrons emitted whistling sounds. At the same time, wind cosmic energies surrounded him, and he suddenly appeared higher up in the sky, following the cauldrons. Imprison, said Lin Feng, and a cage appeared. However, the golden energies pierced through the cage and broke it. Rule, said Lin Feng. His eyes moved as fast as lightning. Devamara Kulpa's rule strength moved towards Guan and bore down on him. Jin Pan Guan pulled a long face. Lin Feng knew so many different attacks. The strength of the 9 cauldrons was incredible. He couldn't win against Lin Feng. I have lost, shouted Jin Pan Guan. He knew that would happen from the beginning. It was better to give up now than end up injured, or he wouldn't be able to continue fighting later. However, by the time Lin Feng heard him, the 9 cauldrons were about to crash on his opponent, and actually did. Metallic sounds rang out. The air shook violently for a few seconds. Lin Feng had won the first battle. He won the battle extremely easily. He will easily win 9 battles, thought the audience in the bleachers. Jin Pan Guan had won 100 battles, but against Lin Feng, he had lost in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng would easily win 9 battles, it seemed. As the crowd had expected, Lin Feng won 2 more battles easily. The fighters didn't use their full strength to fight against him though, as they preferred not to overdo it and keep their energy for the following battles. After winning 3 battles, Lin Feng felt extremely motivated. His blood was boiling. He looked at everyone and said, "You're all being too cautious. The battles are pointless. 6 people can come together, so that we don't waste time." The crowd was astonished. Even though Lin Feng was really strong, he was also being a bit too overconfident, it seemed. He was saying he was bored. People on the battle stage were astonished. They had won 100 battles too, and Lin Feng was saying it was pointless to fight against them. Even the ministers were astonished. I wouldn't have thought this guy would be so arrogant, thought Wang Zhua. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "There are some powerful cultivators amongst them. For example, the Prince of the 6 Abysses. You can't defeat 6 people at the same time. Even a medium-level emperor wouldn't dare fight against 6 of them. He's an ambitious and passionate young man. Let him do what he wants. Besides, he really won the first 3 battles easily. They are geniuses who won 100 battles, and Lin Feng is disappointed. I understand him. Let it be," Minister Uptala said calmly. He didn't sound insistent, and he wasn't trying to humiliate people either. He was just passionate. "We'll see if he can be arrogant or not," said Qing Qing, smiling gently. Wang Zhuo was surprised, but he quickly smiled and said, "You're right. I should wait and see before criticizing." When people on the battle stage heard Lin Feng, and then the ministers, they were unhappy. They had all won 100 battles. Why were they there today? They wanted to earn privileges, and now they had to face a madman. People didn't even pay attention to them anymore. Everybody was only talking about Lin Feng. These battles should be fair one-on-ones, but since you want to fight against us at the same time, why not? I don't mind. I would love to see how strong you really are since you want to try, said someone at that moment, moving swiftly. That's how a man should be. Real men don't care about what people say. Even if they know they're going to lose, they try anyway. It makes them stronger. All you guys are outstanding fighters, whether you lose or win, said Lin Feng. Many other people agreed. Lin Feng was arrogant, but many people admired him for that. He was arrogant but passionate. Silhouettes flickered and 6 people surrounded Lin Feng with powerful qi. "Let's fight," said Lin Feng as he released his Kulpa strength, which rose to the skies. A powerful demon qi surrounded him. Devamara Kulpa rolled in waves like thunder. He looked like a death god. Many dazzling lights emerged. Prince Mai attacked first, releasing a black strength which blotted out the sky. Lin Feng had the sensation he had fallen into hell as the air around him was sealed. Inescapable net technique. Everybody's eyes were glittering. The 6 attacked one after another. A powerful blade moved towards Lin Feng, while at the same time, small black embers struck out. Lin Feng disappeared inside all those energies. He waved his hands and attacked both fighters. A Kulpa web appeared around him. The atmosphere kept exploding. Energies collided and the air whistled with motion. Lin Feng flashed into the air. He waved his hands and more energies swept out, including Kulpa strength. A dazzling sharp sword streaked across the sky and moved towards that inescapable net technique. Lin Feng continued rising up in the air. "Where are you going?" shouted Prince Mai icily. He used both fists and released cosmic energies to attack Lin Feng. His energies formed a cage around Lin Feng. "I have to defeat him first." Lin Feng looked like an ancient overlord. The air crackled as powerful earth and demon energies appeared above his head. Lin Feng released a gigantic hand towards the demon and earth hammer. He used physical strength and Devamara Kulpa strength to counterattack. The ground shook violently as the hammer crashed onto Lin Feng's hands with the explosive impact. His fists started bleeding. However, Lin Feng continued pressing against the energies with bare hands like an ancient god doing battle. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.